Nurburgring is the scene of the final round of the 2018 Blancpain Sprint Cup. Weather set fair for a weekend. It's super tight at the top of the championship. Let's see how we got here. Looking at the highlights from the Nurburgring, where weather conditions were very tricky indeed. 3 laps behind the safety car before the field was released, really tiptoeing down to the first corners, drivers not wanting to throw it away before they've even completed the opening lap. But the really strong racing in the opening laps was between the two Christophers, Haas and Mies. Bortolotti's car with Engelhardt at the wheel was leading the way, but it was the Audis that were running side by side. A few drivers slipping off towards the edge of the circuit, but actually the drivers did a remarkably good job, as you can see, in very tricky conditions. Of course there were spinners. Unfortunately, Markus Winkelhock tipped into a spin there, got it back going. This is the moment where Christopher Haas in the Santalot Racing Audi went down the inside and took the smile off the faces of WRT. You can see Vincent Voss shaking his head as the position changed, looping around from Andrea Caldarelli. That would earn him punishment as well. Then it came to the time of the pit stops. Even the pit stop was very, very slippery. Out onto the track they went again. Drivers changed to the second pairings, and there the unfortunate departure of the 63 Lamborghini. You can see the mechanic trying to get out of the working lane, but he was still there when the car was moving away, so a drive-through penalty really wrecked the chances in the second race. And unfortunately, possibly with a flat tyre deflating, Piti Bierenbakti down to the next corner, round he looped into the gravel, and with the Ferrari sitting there, the safety car had to be used until it was cleared away. When the safety car withdrew, Michael Meadows streaked away at the front of the field, but Hubert Haupt just could not build on the work that Lukas Stolz had done in the Black Falcon. Mercedes started falling back down the field. He kept on falling, much to the distress of Lukas Stolz. Eventually would go all the way down to 12th place. The Audi's looking fantastic over the curves. Little bit of a slip up there, and unfortunately for Christopher Mies and Alex Riberos, their loss of position. Then Dries van Tor going for a spin. No problems at all though for the 88 crew, and Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello taking maximum points to go equal top in the championship. You can see how delighted Meadows was when he got out of the car, and Raffaele Marciello dispensing the champagne on the podium. The number 1 Audi has had the most fantastic season. That's why it comes to the Nurburgring for the final round in the championship lead. A series of podium positions were followed by 2 wins, both wins at Misano for Alex Riberos and his teammate Christopher Mies. Will they build on that here at the Nurburgring? They're going to have to make sure they take the championship title. Let's see if they can.
Obviously the plan is to finish in front of the other guys, of the Mercedes guys. Yeah, we came to Budapest with 20 points advantage. We left with 0. So it didn't go to plan, but obviously this is my home track. This is where I've done the most laps of my career. I live just 1 hour from here, so I really want to take this momentum, feel being in home soil and take as many points as possible from the other guys away and finish in front.
In the Pro-Am class, Santalot Racing has a toe in the pond because Niels Stevenart and Markus Winkelhock have had a really good season. They've come on strong. 4 class wins out of the last 5 races in their battle with the TP12 Ferrari crew. Will they win it this weekend?
I have done really many laps at Nürburgring, that's sure. Niels never has done 1 lap. It's his first time on the Nürburgring. So we watched a lot of onboard laps before we went on track, then we did like a track walk, and now after the first free practice session, there was some good data to look at after the first session, and I think he's doing well. I think the Audi is normally pretty good at Nürburgring, and at the end, we just shouldn't do any mistakes, clear racing, and then I think everything should be possible this weekend.
The pressure is really on for the TP12 Kessel Racing Ferrari crew of Piti Bierenbakti and Carlo Van Dam. They've led the Pro-Am honours all season, but they come here to the Nürburgring with only 3.5 points advantage over the chasing Santalot Audi crew. But Piti Bierenbakti is excited.
Yeah, last year I'm new to all of the tracks, so my confidence is not that high. But this year is repeating of all the tracks. I have a lot more confidence. Well, the highlight of our team, I think this year we did not miss any podium, and I think in terms of my pace, I did a lot better than last year. So just continue doing the good job.
In third place for overall Sprint Cup honours are the 63 Lamborghini crew of Christian Engelhardt and Mirko Bortolotti. They've taken 2 wins, but their season has been full of ups and downs. Can they come good this weekend?
Nurburgring is always a special place to race. It's not just because of the layout, but also because of the weather, because you never know what's going to happen. As it looks now, it should stay dry for the rest of the weekend, but you never know at the Nurburgring, and it's always good to have the last race of the season here. We won the endurance race 2 years ago in this place, so we got good memories at this track, and we are in the title fight. So yeah, never say never. We have a chance, and we will go for it, we will fight for it, and the aim is to win the championship.
It's been a great season for Tempto Racing since they moved across to running Audis this year. They took victory in one of the opening races at Zolder, and Stijn Schothorst and Kelvin van der Linde are a super strong pairing, fourth on the championship, looking for more victories here in the final round.
I like this track a lot. I've had my last year I've had my first GT3 race here, and it went quite well. Kelvin, my teammate, is very experienced on this track as well. So I think we're in a good position. We're sort of in the underdog position, but I think that's a good thing for us. We don't have much to lose. We can only go forward, and that's our aim. Historically seen, the Audi's been always quite good on the Nurburgring, so I'm hoping for this year is the same. The BOP seems quite decent for us. It's really cool to be racing so many professional drivers, and I'm very proud to be able to match with them and occasionally beat them as well. And that's what we're here for, and that's what we're planning to do.
A driver pairing that's really, really on the up. It's got momentum. It's the 88 ACA ASP Mercedes crew of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows. Came good with second and first places to move equal with the championship leading #1 Audi at the Hungaroring. Will they deliver this weekend? It's really finely poised.
Relatively confident, I think. When you come to a race in Blancpain, you can never be fully confident because it's a really tough championship, but we need to maximise our package and then see where we end up. I think the Audi is going to be fast, so there's a few more of them, so we've got to fight our way through them.
It's been a fantastic season for the ACA ASP pairing that runs in the Silver Cup class. Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester, they already have the championship in the bag, completing their season's real work at the Hungaroring last time out. So here it's a glory ride at the Nurburgring, and they're looking for a really, really top result against the full pro honours. Let's hear from Nico Bastian.
The plan is to get points because we are still fighting for the overall Silver Cup Championship. So Hubert Haupt is here, who wants to steal the trophy. So that's why we need to look after him, to be ahead of him, or at least not to lose so many points. And it's his home track as well, and it will be tight for sure. So we try to find a lot of points here to have a good advantage for Barcelona, because for sure the overall championship is very nice to get as well.
So we've just heard the interviews from the drivers vying for championship honours, and as you look out over the Nürburgring, you can see a day that started with bright blue skies and sunshine has cloud coming over. It's relatively high cloud, and I don't think it's going to have a role to play in this race. Track temperature, we saw 25 degrees this morning, and it's tumbled down to below 21. Humidity though, that has come back down. So for John Watson and me, Bruce Jones, I think we're set fair for 1 hour of prodigious racing. There's so much to play for. This is the penultimate race of the championship, the final race tomorrow morning. And for the Emil Frey Lexus team, their number 14 Lexus is on the front row of the grid, dreaming of a podium result. If they can get their first win of the championship, they will be super made up, especially after yesterday. They were all over the place in practice, couldn't find it. Now waiting for the lights to go green, looking up the starting gantry, the cars coming into the final corner, the right-hand hairpin onto the start and finish straight in their pairs, 10 pairs, 2x2 formation. They come around to the final corner. Lights on the gantry are red, waiting for them to go green. They won't. Now the cars are on the start finish straight. There are the green lights. Who's made the better stop? I fancy the number 1 Audi's made a belter. It's right under the tail. Alex Riberas right under the tail of Mirko Bortolotti, but nose in front around the outside, but he's going to have to back off. Is Costa coming up the inside? Christopher Haase running out of circuit. Fourth becomes 6th, 7th, 8th, and I think the number 2 Audi with Will Stevens was inveigled to go off the circuit as well. Good to see in the middle of the pack. The 88 Mercedes has not put a foot wrong. Michael Meadows trying to gain ground and certainly looking very positive. Nico Bastian up into 3rd place for AKSP, going up the inside of Albert Costa, who's on the wrong position for turn 4 and is pushed back down to 4th place. Could be a place gained by Ezequiel Perez Compact, because driving on the grass is not the best way to go, John.
No, getting 3 into turn 5 will not work, but good start by the Lamborghini, consolidated its grid. The Lexus got a little bit elbowed back in third place, but the battle with Nico Bastian and the 90 Mercedes, clearly Bastian sees an opportunity to seize another position. Lexus goes very defensive, goes way out to the right-hand side of the track, then comes back to the left, breaking down into turn 8. So group of 4 cars, and they are all nose to tail. Where is Michael Meadows? There he is.
I think he might have lost one, but what's happening is the first 2 cars are getting away, so Alex Riberas is doing everything he can to at least put maximum points in the pots in today's race, but it's only 8 points for victory today. It's 25 for victory tomorrow. Come on, May, he's got to get on the podium. He's got to keep that car in the hunt, and Michael Meadows down in, we think actually is still in 10th place. He's going to see what he can pick up. Pro-Am class leader just going out of shot. It's Piti Birambakti. And behind it's some quite robust stuff. We've already seen, I think, Nils Stevenart pushed out over the side of the circuit. He stays back on, and it's tidy. So the 2 runners from the Sansalok Audi that started with Simon Gachet and Christopher Haas from 4th place. We saw it going deep into the first corner, going wide, took another Audi with it, which we think was Will Stevens. So they've lost a bit of ground, but certainly Mirko Bortolotti did absolutely everything right.
Here we see again, look, the 3rd car, that front 3 cars gets down the inside. The Lexus just simply overruns, partly because the Lamborghini likewise overrun and took the Lexus with it, and that's what really opened up the opportunity for Alex Riberas to get up the inside and try and get as close to the back of the Lamborghini as he had been as he came down into turn 1. And now there's Nico Bastian, who momentarily gets the Mercedes ahead of the Lexus, but on the wrong part of the racetrack and being effectively pushed right out onto the grass. Then coming through down the hill to turn 6, the field just makes its way side by side, and back to the action.
Back to the action, still with Mirko Bortolotti leading the way from Alex Riberas. Albert Costa holding down 3rd for Lexus. Nico Bastian leading the Silver Cup. We've already got the Sprint Cup, Silver Cup, if you will, title in his pocket, shared with Jack Manchester. He's running 4th, he's got ahead.
As Godwin Grasser looks intently down at timing and scoring. Focus on the gap between 1st and 2nd now, 1.6 seconds to the advantage of the 63 Lamborghini. On board with Michael Meadows. I mean, you can see a lot of amount of steering correction that he's having to input into and making an adjustment down to the side of his leg. I don't know if that's a brake adjustment or not, but anyway, he's got Norbert Siedler directly behind him, and in that last lap, Norbert Siedler was 7/10 of a second quicker than Michael Meadows, who of course himself is boxed in with traffic ahead. There is Ezekiel Perez Compact being chased by the 66 Stein Stuttenhorst, and that's a battle that has been, well, it's been developing. Just 1.1 seconds behind.
Rinaldi Racing Ferrari has taken a tumble.
Oh dear! Big, and that's going to be
hit the back of Piti Birambakti, the Pro-Am class leader.
Straight into the back of him. That's going to be a momentary. It's going to be a full course yellow initially, then it'll ultimately go to a safety car. So that was
that was unfortunate.
2 Pro-Am drivers getting together, and that's going to take a minute or 2. That car has got to be removed by a recovery vehicle. You can see the right rear suspension completely misaligned, as is the bodywork.
So as they stand, Alex Riberas and Christian Mies, Riberas still at the wheel in 2nd place on the track. They will take 86 points, or end up on 86 if they finish. Bortolotti and Engelhardt will now move ahead of Marcello and Meadows into 2nd place. There they are leading the race. Engelhardt waiting to take over in the 2nd part of the race. And Meadows not in the points, he's down in 11th place on the track. Marcello, we've seen him in the pit garage, he'll be very frustrated indeed. It looks like they're not going to get points in this race. The lights on the roof of the safety car should be out. It's coming in this lap. Think about the restart, Mirko. Mirko will be thinking of nothing else. And also, it could be another place possibly gained by Ezekiel Perez Compact. Very good at the start of the race. He's 5th in that train of cars, and that could really help.
Watch the 63 car when it comes out of the chicane, it will go. There he is, he's on it. And he tried to get a jump on the Audi and the Lexus.
It's a big gap, though, between Jamin and Meadows. That's what I was talking about. It seemed to go out, so Meadows needed to be right under the tail of his teammate. Look, there's a gap behind the red Mercedes. Then comes the yellow and black one. That's the car that was in equal lead of the championship. Not looking for points this afternoon at the current rate, but Bortolotti controls the restart. The first 4 runners have it nice and plain. In fact, the only challenge is coming Will Stevens down the inside of Stein Schotthorst. So Schotthorst was actually slightly asleep to that. So advantage and full points there to Will Stevens for really getting his head switched on. Very nice. Very good exit from the final corner from the Albert Costa Lexus, but just being super defensive. Covered on the inside by Riberas.
Watch the undercut, Bruce. There's going to be an opportunity for the Lexus to get alongside. Alex Riberas just was able to get on the throttle enough to keep that, but again, the Lexus looking to go up the inside, coming down into turn 3. Can he stick the nose? He's been able to use a lot of the inside of turn 3 on previous laps, but now again wrong-footed, so you're swinging one way or the other, trying to find the undercut. Next opportunity down the inside into turn 5, being covered by Alex Riberas, but this time the Lexus almost alongside coming in, but again wrong part of the racetrack for turn 6. And Alex Riberas, the first of what we've seen of the callers into the pit lane, so the second place, and also Ezequiel Perez at the Audi. So 4 cars again. Michael Meadows not unreasonably making his way. It's going to be a busy pit lane. A lot of people coming in earlier than I thought, but this stop I hadn't anticipated. Alex Riberas, he's going to be handing over the car to Christopher Mies, who we know can do a miracle, or can perform miracles, not do a miracle, perform miracles when he's called upon. Michael Meadows getting a lot of flashing headlights from the second of the 2 Lexus. He can't go any quicker than the speed, but there, Raffaele Marciello. But here is the car that was in second place, stops. The board that said we stop here. So Christopher Mies helping get Alex Riberas out, and then the favour being returned. Likewise, the 88 Mercedes. Raffaele Marciello. It's going to be a battle of the pit stops to see who can get the cars down and rolling, get that wheel and tower across the white line before you roll. Oh, and both cars get rolling, but the benefit to the Audi was it was at the end of the pit lane, and now the 88's got 2 cars between him and that number 1 Audi, and that will, again, look, the Lexus running behind. What's he flashing his lights for? It's a speed limit in the pit lane.
Yes, as if Raffaele Marciello just was choosing to go slowly and lose time the opposition. Of course he wasn't, but it's about half the field that came in for the pit stop. Bortolotti comes in, and again, that's earlier than we expected,
earlier,
John.
but not. Maybe they're looking at saying, where will, not just about when we make our pit stop, more critically, where will we fall back into the field? And what they're considering is the pace of the number 1 Audi, which was the first of the pit stoppers. They will want to get this car back out and be ahead of the number 1 Audi when it comes round at the end of its first flying lap.
So the leader on the track now is the number 55 Audi, and at the wheel of that we've got Peter Schotthorst right under his rear wing, Nico Jamin in the 87 Mercedes. But all eyes on the 63 Lamborghini's pit stop. Out hops Mirko Bortolotti, in clambers Christian Engelhardt. Of course, we want to see where it comes back out onto the circuit. It should be ahead of the number 1 Audi, and when that one comes around.
Bruce, more critically, Grasser Racing will be aware of the error that occurred. Cars down, no problems this time, so the car will be rolling. Slowish getaway for Christian Engelhardt. He's not too far from pit lane exit. There is the Audi coming down. He has to wait until they get on full throttle. He's now on full throttle. So they've consolidated, but by the time they get into turn 1, the gap between first and second place is going to be more or less the gap prior to them going into the pit stop.
But who's set now the fastest first sector of anyone? It's the other car that came here leading the championship. Christopher Mies, the number 1 Audi, has just gone even faster in the very long first sector. Great to have the Lexus in the mix, but the car that is going to be leading the race when Nico Bastian has finally come in from leading the race in the number 90 Mercedes. John, you enjoyed that getaway.
Lexus leading the race because it's on the pit lane now, waiting to see it's coming down. Again, they've got these lights flashing. I don't know whether it's an automatic Mirko Bortolotti, and they're going to be coming out in 3rd place. First 2 go through cleanly now. The Lexus makes its way out. It's got
But he might come out behind the 19 Lamborghini, so he's lost a lot of ground.
Caldarelli will be following up as quickly as possible. And runs a little bit deep, and Caldarelli can get up alongside, and can he make it the long way around turn 2? Remember, fresh rubber on the Lexus and different feel.
Dries van Thor fancies a bit of the action in the number 2.
Caldarelli gets past.
That was very, very defensively done. And there we go, Van Thor was on it. He's on the wrong line as they go to turn 4. He'll have to cede position. Back in 5th, but he gets a better exit, running wide off the circuit, trying to get heat into his tyres, but you don't get so much over there. Number 14, Lexus holding on to 4th, but only just. They dive down into turn 5. Van Thor had a look, showed his intent, and all along behind they've got another Schotthorst looking to get in on the action. But the big question to me, 11th place was the position listed for Raffaele Marciello. That's the position the car came in from, but last night he was the fastest driver of all in this race. He's got to get himself uncorked.
Dries van Thor going to give Christian Klein a good old workout.
Here is the lead battle coming into the background. In fact, he could almost get out ahead of them. No, not quite. Of course, it's much longer to the pit lane exit.
So the 2 lead cars are coming through. Jack Manchester is going to slot into 3rd position ahead of Andrea Caldarelli. In the meantime, fastest race lap has now been to Dries van Thor, 155.688. Best overall first and second sector. Stunning lap altogether. And that car currently number 2, Audi in 6th place.
Wow, that is one heck of a lap. So out into third position goes Jack Manchester on his 20th birthday.
As we go up the hill, and a pass almost from Nico Bastian. Not quite able to get it done, but up the
position.
inside.
He tried to fight back. Cordarelli just gone past him. Unfortunately, car 37 is off track and has stopped at turn 12. So third place, fourth place, fifth place, very tight position. Another change of position.
Ahead of Bastian.
So out of Manchester, Manchester's just taken it over. So Dries van Tor up into fourth place and said he could have a role to play in this race. So as they stand, if the race stopped now, Alex Riberas and Chris Vermees, they're second on the track. 86 points. That will give them a 10-point lead. Raffaele Marcello and Michael Meadows will stay back. They move back into second place, and Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Langenhardt into third. That's how they were before the start of the race. But before the start of the race, Riberas and Mees, Marcello and Meadows were equal on points. This hasn't been a great run for the number 88 Mercedes. There it is, yellow Mercedes. It's just gained a position, got past Adam Christodoulou. I don't know if that was a give or not, but they are teammates after all. So hunting down a point, but not in them yet. Certainly it's been disappointed for Marcello and Meadows. We've just, I thought we just had a place change. In fact, we have. Jack Manchester has dropped back down 3 positions. He's let the Lexus come through, Christian Klein. He's got Kelvin van der Linde, and now Raffaele Marcello 1 position away from the points. No, 2 positions. Yeah, 1 position away from the points, up to 7th place. He's hunting down van der Linde all over again.
Crossing everything in the pit lane to get this 88 Mercedes to get it into the point scoring. Even if they get just 1 point, remember they'll get another point from pole position for Sunday's.
But they didn't. They got. Remember, they got pit right at the end. Lucas Stoltz stole that point.
Indeed, you're right.
The Black Falcon. Right. So it might just seem like 1 point, but they all add up. And certainly getting very, very tight in the midfield order there. Great to see Pierre Caffer in the 55 Attempto Racing Audi. He's just behind the red Adam Christodoulou Mercedes that's tucked in behind Jack Manchester. But the good thing for the ACA ASP team is the fact that Raffaele Marcello has moved up closer to the points. The points come 8, 6, 4, 2, 1 for the top 6 finishers today. Tomorrow the points all go all the way down to 10th place, but this is the one you've just got to pick up points in.
And still harrying Kelvin van der Linde in the Audi, looking to make a move up the inside. Van der Linde has to go defensive into the final turn. That might give an opportunity for Marcello to make the pass down the inside and the exit. He's going to be in the pound seat when it comes getting down the straight, pit straight into turn 1. Van der Linde closing the 2 cars, almost door handle to door handle,
well,
as they come down pit straight.
He'd already made the move. He was 0.011 of a second, 11 thousandths of a second ahead on the start-finish line, but importantly, he had the position for the first corner. He's run a little bit wide, should be able to squeeze back over. So, place gain, well done. It's getting quite interesting down towards the tail of the field. We've got various drivers moving up after the early incidents. Christopher Haas is picking up positions. He was 13th. I think he's just gone up to 12th. He's got Franks right with him as well. Jack Manchester falling back down the order a little bit now. Can't match the pace. These drivers have been racing GT3 cars for years. This is his first season since racing Radicals, and only his second full season of racing, so doing a good job. But when the pros start coming through, they get through. Friens in the grey car in the middle of the screen, and Christopher Haas as close as you can get, and then some perhaps. Down the inside goes Haas. He's had a very good end to his season. Whereas Raffaele Marcello will start on the front row. We're riding with Marcello now, John. What are we seeing?
Down through turn 12, down the hill through the flat-out kink at 13. The Lexus has come alive this weekend. I mean, it's struggled on Friday. On the inside, Dries van Tor pushes. Oh, now that was clumsy. Caldarelli either wasn't using his mirrors or chose to ignore. Didn't need to make that contact. The Audi was clearly alongside. You can see the reaction from the team, the Grasser Racing team. They're disappointed in it.
Well, all this could actually, if they carry on like this, suddenly become very good news for Raffaele Marcello, and very, very bad news indeed for the number 1 Audi crew. They're running second in the race.
Is the rear wing on the Audi damaged? I thought it looked like there's a bit of a movement, a wobble on it, but Caldarelli not at all impressed with that move by Dries van Tor. And I think he's, to put it bluntly, his dander is up.
I think so too. Warning flag, black and white warning flag. Let's take a look at the
okay.
He's late.
It's a late move, but by the time they get into the corner, they're just about wheel to wheel. In fact, he's ahead. Caldarelli, in fairness, had begun his turn in, and Dries van Tor had no option. He was just going to go straight. So the contact occurred. I think they may feel that was, initially my reaction was that Caldarelli was at fault, but he had committed to turning in.
Here's the first of the Lexuses. That is Christian Klein in 5th place overall. This will be this car's best result this year. But who's behind him? Raffaele Marcello, the driver who, as soon as he got in the car, started breaking the lap record. That Marcello is desperate for every point he can get, and the intent is plain to be seen.
Watch again to see if he can do the same as he did to the Audi a little while ago. Calvin van der Linde got the pace off the corner, accelerating just bit by bit. It's like a couple of trucks on the motorway, barely able to pass one another, but the Mercedes has the momentum, but more importantly, has track position coming down into turn one. Christian Klein unable to come back this time. Raffaele Marcello does not need to overrun the corner. A number of laps ago he went wide trying to get past the 66 Audi and paid the penalty. Now he's found himself up into 5th place.
Now a replay going up the inside of the Lexus. When they crossed the start-finish line, the gap between them was smaller than the blink of an eye. But coming down, of course, you're going to brake as late as you possibly can. Listen to this as he gets into the braking zone.
Well, I mean, he's using engine braking, brakes to brake. I mean, there wasn't a lot left in the tank in terms of getting the Mercedes slowed down. The key for that overtake was, again, the exit of turn 16.
So here we are, the Sprint Cup overall at the moment. As they stand, Riberas and Mies, the number 1 Audi, will finish with 86 points if they cross the line. The gap is coming down and is now down to 7.5 points over Marcello and Meadows as Marcello continues to advance. I don't think there's going to be any further moves. Bortolotti and Engelhardt will end the day 3rd overall as they started it, but they will of course have gained because they're leading the race on the 2 rival teams of Riberas and Maurice in the number 1 Audi and Marcello and Meadows in the black and yellow Mercedes number 88. Dries van Tor will move up to 4th place overall. Christian Engelhardt sitting on a 3-second advantage as he goes on to the final lap. Turn 12 for the last time at racing speed. Gottfried, come on, practice your smiling. I think you'll have good reason to do so. Through the kink at turn 13, that advantage of 3 seconds. Not looking as though it's coming down. Christian Engelhardt will just have to concentrate a tiny bit more. Mirko Bortolotti cracks into a smile. Yeah, this is job done. Up to the chicane for the final time with no one under his rear wing. Christian Engelhardt can have a slightly conservative exit. Come into turn 16, the final corner, the right-hand hairpin. Gottfried Grasser on the radio to Christian Engelhardt. And victory in the bag. It's their 3rd win. The cheers for the GRT Grasser Racing team, punching the air. They could yet win the Sprint Cup title. They came in as the outsider. 5 crews could have taken victory in the championship. And now I think it's probably down to 3 crews who can do that. We'll do the maths a little bit later, but they are still in the mix. And there's Raffaele Marcello, who came here equal in the championship lead. He's recovered from the car being in 11th at the pit stop changeover. He's come through in 5th place. So it's going to be tight for tomorrow, but the top 3 runners are still in the battle. And look how the field is almost nose to tail as it completes the final lap. 29 laps completed. We had the period behind the safety car, or we would have had more. But let's go down into the winners area because John Watson has got there and he's talking to our winners, Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt.
Mirko, I suppose you could describe your drive today as a beautiful drive. Everything went perfectly.
Yes, I had a good quali first of all, so we managed to get an extra point this morning with a pole position for race 1. I had a great start. It was quite tricky in turn 1 because you never know where to brake actually, because it's quite slippery and offline. So I managed to get it quite okay, but I went a little bit further than I expected, but I managed to keep my position. And after that, I just tried to go my pace, defend my position as much as I could. And it was a great first stint, great race from the whole team. And I'm super happy to be back on the top step. And huge thanks everyone. Perfect day for us.
Okay. Christian, you got the car in the lead, but it wasn't really a walk on the park to the flag, was it?
No, definitely not. Of course, it's always good when you get the car in first position. Mirko did an awesome job in qualifying already this morning. But it was quite tight with the safety car. We didn't have a big lead, and we also didn't have the pace to pull a gap. So I got in the car and I immediately had Mies behind. So it wasn't easy pushing all the way to the flag. At the end I could go away a little bit, but I think it was not easy today. We're proud for the whole team.
So here, after 29 laps, victory to the 63 Lamborghini team. Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt, Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies. Really important race for their championship. They knew they couldn't take the lead, so they stayed in 2nd place and gathered the points for that to just under 3 seconds down. Will Stevens, their teammate, and Dries van Tor in the number 2 Audi coming home 3rd after getting past the Ezekiel Perez compact, Andrea Cordarelli Lamborghini. But the driver who made the moves was Raffaele Marcello, took over in 11th place and moved up to 5th place to take the points that go with that. Very important indeed. And the winning crew get the giant trophies for victory. Trophies big enough to match their smiles. So the stage is set for the final race of the 2018 Blancpain Sprint Cup. We started the season long ago at Zolder, and this is the 10th race at the 5th round, the final round. We came to this meeting with 5 crews that could take the overall title, and one driver on his own could make it to the top. Now we're down to just 2 crews. Temperature nearly 28 degrees, track temperature. Humidity continues to drop, which is very good news indeed. But we do have news as well, because it's now down to just 2 crews that can take the overall title, because after yesterday's race, Christian Engelhardt was found to have his hands harnessed not under the straps of his seatbelts, and they were given a 30-second penalty, and that has dropped them out of the reckoning down to 13th place from yesterday's victory, which cost them. And since then, there's been a sporting and technical infringement, and they have been disqualified from the meeting. So now it's down to the battle between Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi versus Raffaele Marcello and Michael Meadows in the 88 ACA Mercedes. They're the only 2 teams that can take the overall driver's title this afternoon, and they're very separated on the grid. So there's a story that's really going to unfold over the 1 hour that kicks off when we get to 4 o'clock here in Germany this afternoon and start the race. So there's been a big stirring of the pot, and it's 2 crews left at the top. And also with a problem yesterday for Piti Bhirombhakdi being knocked out of the race, we have just heard, as I was about to talk you through the Pro-Am Cup, I've just heard news that Marcus Winkelhock and Niels Stevenart in the 26 Audi have decided to start from the pit lane to avoid any trouble, because they've suddenly inherited, after all season long trailing Piti Bhirombhakdi and Carlo Van Dam in the TP12 Kessel Racing Ferrari, that got knocked out of the race yesterday, and suddenly the points has swung very much to the advantage of Stevenart in the Sansa-Lock car. The Audi now leading the Pro-Am Challenges. But let's go down to the grid, because John Watson is getting busy, and he's found Michael Meadows, who's coming in chasing this championship title.
Michael, you and Raffaele have got one simple task to do, just win.
Yeah, like you say, we just need to win the race. That's all we can do. That's the only thing we can control. The car looks like it's behaving quite well. We're starting at the front, so we just want to, take the opportunity, and then we'll see what the championship does after the race.
Well, it's the car alongside you on pole position, Black Falcon, Mercedes, Lucas Stolz. You're all part of the Mercedes tree, the family. I saw 3 of them all had a little huddle, little chat, all the Mercedes guys, Nico Basti and Lucas Stolz, Raffaele. Do you think they're all going to really try and work to help you guys get this championship?
No, I think they were just discussing the party tonight or something. But it's
goals again.
They were, they've got to run their own race really. Black Falcon, they're here to score points and perform at their best. Same with Dries. We can't rely on anyone else for favours. We have to do it ourselves.
I'm sure you'll do a good job. Well done, Mike.
Cheers.
So just to reiterate, they do have to go on to win, because if they win, that means that Riberas and Mies in the number 1 Audi, and I'll come to that in a moment, will have to finish. If they finish 4th, Riberas and Mies take the title. They'll end up on equal on points, but they will have 3 wins. So if the 88 Mercedes wins, they will only have 2. But here's the twist. Starting on the 7th row with the grid is where Christian Mies will be kicking off in the number 1 title-leading car. But John Watson is busy, and he's moved across the grid to the Black Falcon Mercedes that's sitting on pole, and he's talking to Hubert Howard.
Hubert, the Black Falcon Mercedes, pole position, but you're in the Silver Cup.
Yeah, the first goal for us is to win the Silver Cup and not overall, so we will keep out of every fight between the pro cars. Our goal is to win the Silver Cup, and for me to win overall at the final race in Barcelona.
Lucas Stolz is in the opening stint. Raffaele Marcello, opening stint. You're both members of the Mercedes family. I've asked them this question. I'm going to ask you, are you going to give them an assistance, or are you going to make their life difficult?
Well, first of all, we do our own race, but finally we won't fight until the end to the Mercedes, that's for sure. But we will be fair, so the 2 cars which run for the championship, they should do their own race, and we won't interrupt them.
Good man, thank you.
Now, here's the fly potentially in the ointment for the drivers on the front of the grid. It's Dries van Tor who will be starting from 3rd on the grid, sharing with Will Stevens, and he is fighting for the Belgian Audi Club Team WRT entry and hoping to get ahead of them, because that would help their teammates who are starting. Christopher Mies starting down in the 7th row. And why is Mies all the way back down there? Fast enough to qualify further up, but he had an off. There was a brake pipe that failed, and he was tipped off at the bottom of the circuit and had to watch car after car improving their lap times while he was was at the side of the circuit with a damaged car. The team did a really good job to get the car ready for race 1 yesterday. Now we're looking there at the car that has led the Pro-Am Championship for drivers all season long until they were knocked out of the race yesterday. Carlo Van Dam will start the race today and hand over to Piti Bhirombhakdi, but the 26 Santilok Racing Audi has decided to start from pit lane just to avoid all the trouble. Marcus Winkelhock and Niels Stevenart now are in the lead of the Pro-Am Drivers' Championship, and they have an 11-point advantage, and that is very useful with 16.5 points to put in your pocket for a victory. So let's go down and hear from Team WRT with the boss, Vincent Voss.
Vincent, back in the 7th row of the grid, that's a nervous position, a nervous grid position for you, isn't it?
Exciting race. I mean, we are here to give a show, and well, everything can go well, everything can go wrong. It's exciting.
Goal to finish 4th or higher, that's what I believe.
Yeah, 4th will be nice. It will give us enough point, but yeah, let's see how the start is going first.
I asked you a question, was this your 6th consecutive Sprint Cup Championship for WRT? You weren't sure, but Thierry Tassin beside me, can you answer the question? Have you in effect won the 6th consecutive Sprint Cup team title?
I don't know, John, because I joined WRT in 2014.
You lot are useless.
Anyway, let's hope we have a good race. We had some issues in qualifying, brake failure. We had a little problem going to the grid with the pedal going very soft, very long, so we bleed the brakes on the grid, and hopefully it's going to be okay. Let's hope.
Yeah, it happens when you get old, believe me.
So Wassi finding out the news more than normally given away there by Thierry Tassin. Just a little bit of a problem going to the grid, but hopefully that's sorted. I can answer the question. They have taken the team's title already for the Sprint Cup. 17.5 points is their advantage over the ACA ASP team, and there are 16.5 points to win. So yes, that is a title in the bag for Belgian Audi Club Team WRT. But will they take the Drivers' Trophy for the overall championship in the Sprint Cup this year? Starting from 15th on the grid, it's going to be a big ask, and they're going to have to really rely, I would say, in the early stages of the race by a fantastic start from Dries van Thor. There is his car, the number 2 Audi, on the inside of the second row. That's on the left of the screen. But alongside him, he's got Christopher Haas, and he's on fine form at the end of the season for the Santilok Racing team. Down to row number 3. Yes, row number 3, and a Pro-Am class, well, was class leader all season. Carlo Van Dam, astonishingly good run for him in qualifying. And the car that's ahead of him on points after the turn, the twist of the tail yesterday, will be starting not from the outside of the 5th row, but the Santilok Racing number 26 Audi. There is its grid slot. That is empty. Is starting from pit lane just to try and be safe. Now, one car that should have been starting from that 5th row would have been the 63 Lamborghini, but just to reiterate, after the problems, after disqualification, well, but first a 30-second penalty, then subsequent disqualification for the meeting for a transgression of the sporting and technical regulations for having a safety harness over the top of the race harness rather than the other way around. That has turned push to shove, and they have been disqualified for the meeting. So they were the car that would have been making it a 3-way battle, the outside shot for the title. They will not be starting this afternoon's race. So we have 18 cars on the grid, 1 ready to start from the pit lane, and the 333 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari will bring up the rear. And it's a little infraction earlier. Laptop was found to be plugged in when it shouldn't have been, but they had only qualified 1 row ahead of that, so that's not a big loss. So let's focus on the front of the grid. The Black Falcon Mercedes, number 6, all blue, will be starting from the front row, from pole position. Lucas Stoltz right at the end of qualifying, pipping Raffaele Marciello. It looks as though the bonus point was going the way of the Championship Challenger. Didn't quite do it, but 2 Mercedes on the front row, and it looks as though the number 90 Mercedes is also now not on the grid. That was due to be started by Jack Manchester. Last-minute work, but I'd suggest it's somewhat after the last minute. The tall figure of Jack Manchester standing with his head down to the right of the car. Clearly very sad indeed for him, but he and his teammate Nico Bastian had already wrapped up the Silver Club Drivers' title last time out in the Hungaroring, so the points in the bag. But right now, you want to go out and race. It's a perfect afternoon for racing here at the Nurburgring on the Grand Prix circuit. 5.137 kilometers, 16 turns, gradient change, opportunities to overtake in many, many locations around the circuit, and if not overtake, to get very, very close indeed. So another faller that should have been towards the rear of the grid, but unfortunately will not be starting the race. Should have been, in fact, not. He would have been on row 9 on the outside, but Jack Manchester, young British driver, just turned 20 yesterday, not going to get this race start when the race gets underway. Very sad to see. highs and lows of racing. The highs came in Hungary for Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester, wrapping up the Silver Cup Sprint Cup title with 1 round to go. And it's a gearbox issue they're working on. Thank you for the spies up and down the pit lane. So getting ready for the formation lap, which should be in 15 seconds. Audi safety car leading the pack around. There's the view across to Raffaele Marciello, driver who oh so nearly took pole position. Just to reiterate, it's so close. It was so close in the Sprint Cup. Coming here to the Nurburgring, we had 5 crews that could have taken the title. Some, admittedly, far more on the outside on the points, and 1 further driver last year. Sprint Cup winner Stuart Leonard, he was the real outside shot, but his chances, he had to take victory in both races, plus I think the bonus point for pole. That hasn't happened, so he is not in the mix anymore. Gradually the others will whittle down, so it's just the 2. Let's focus on the number 1 Belgian Audi Club Team WRT entry. Christopher Mies starting that, but getting this from the 7th row, while the outside of the front row is the 88 ACA ASP Mercedes that will have to do everything to take victory, and just hope that even if it does that, the number 1 Audi can't make it any higher than 5th. So let's take a look at the starting grid. It's the Black Falcon Mercedes with Lucas Stoltz at the wheel, at the, starting from pole. Raffaele Marciello alongside, gunning for championship honours. Then Dries van Tor on the inside of row 2 alongside Christopher Haas, who's having a fantastic end of his season. Carlo van Dam trying to do everything to take that Pro-Am title for Kessel Racing alongside Kelvin van der Linde. Then Robin Friens, he's also going to maybe help play a role for Team WRT. Andrea Cordarelli alongside him for. Then we've got Adam Christodoulou, who's joined the championship this weekend, alongside Marcus Finkelhoff, but he's starting from the pit lane. Ricardo Feller and Marcus Paulsler on row number 6. Then championship challenger Christopher Mies from the 7th row alongside Christian Klein. And don't forget, they were challenging at the front end of the race, so 2 fast cars that come through. Alexei Korniev and Pierre Caffer on row number 8. Then Dennis Dupont on his series debut on row 9, all alone, because Jack Manchester hopefully will get a start, but gearbox problems for the 90 Mercedes. And on the back row, David Perel. Just to reiterate, the number 26 Pro-Am class leading Sansalot Racing Audi, not starting from the outside of row 5, instead will make it start from pit exit. So on the left of the screen, you can see why the long face. Michael Meadows, so many nerves jangling in the ASP camp there. Down on points by 9 points. They have to take win. If they don't take the victory, then it really is a case of just getting into the final places of the top 10 will be enough for Christopher Mies and Alex Riberas. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Congratulations to John Watson. Great interviews down on the grid, and he sprinted over the circuit and up to join me in the commentary box just in the nick of time.
Yeah, up the ladders and down the snakes to get back to the commentary booth. But a very, very warm afternoon on the grid. It must have been somewhere around 20, 22 Celsius. Don't think it's going to have any particular bearing on the outcome of the race. But what will be important is Raffaele Marciello to get the advantage into turn 1 and build a lead. He doesn't need to have a race with the number 6 because it's in a different category, and I suspect that will be how this will play out.
But I tell you what, John, my eyes, the lights go greener on the number 2 Audi. It's tucked in behind Lucas Stoltz. You can hardly see it. The blue Mercedes starting from pole positions, already just fallen behind, just half a body length ahead. No, better on the braking. Lucas Stoltz is going to take the lead into the first corner and keep the lead going around the outside, but hopefully not too far off the circuit is Raffaele Marciello. Has he been passed? Yes, the nose is in front of the number 2 Audi, but he's on the outside line, so Marciello moves back into second place, trying to gain places and not have any body damage. It looks as though there's a lot of light on our screen. It looks as though number 2 Audi got pushed a little bit wide there, and Christopher Haas came into the mix as well. But what we can tell you is Lucas Stoltz is leading the race. A few cars helping each other off the track in the midfield. Lucas Stoltz leading for Raffaele Marciello. Waved yellow flags in the background. 3rd place, Christopher Haas. 4th place, really good start from Kelvin van der Linde. Where is that number 2 Audi? And good to see the number 1 Audi, the championship leader, is still in the mix, but it got very, very tight in there.
Yeah, the number 1 Audi's role is to basically finish 4th or higher at the end of 1 hour, and that might seem a relatively straightforward task, but the difficulty here at Nurburgring is, as ever, is finding a way around the car that you're following, and you get too close, then you get losing your downforce, you lose your front end grip, and then you have to wait until there is damage to that Audi, and that was coming through turn 3 into turn 4. We saw a car go off track, and that is the result of it, a punctured tyre, goodness knows, probably bodywork damage as well.
Well, really unfortunate for Dries van Tor. He was trying his utmost for the team as well as for himself and his teammate Will Stevens, and was trying to challenge for second place. He was pushed a little wide in his battle with Raffaele Marciello through turn 2, was making up ground, lost ground. He was then making up ground between 3 and 4 where it all went wrong.
I don't think Raffaele Marciello is going to get too stressed about running currently in second place, principally because the number 6 Mercedes is in the Silver Cup. But how will not run at the same pace that we know that Michael Meadows can do. So while it is great to see the number 6 leading this race, in effect, by the time we get the round of pit stops and driving changes, the likely balance will favour the 88 Mercedes rather than the number 6. In the meantime, you've still got to keep that close contact, make sure you don't let the number 6 get too far ahead.
Christopher Mies already into the points, already into the top 10. He's moved that number 1 Audi up from the 7th row, from 15th on the grid into 9th position. Very, very good work indeed. Sorry, from 13th on the grid to 9th, but he kept it clean, and unfortunately for his teammate Dries van Tor, not getting back around to the pit garages as yet. He'll be limping in with that puncture. His race very much run. Jack Manchester didn't even get to start the race. They're still trying to fix the number 90 Mercedes.
Through turn 4 and then the run down, and Lucas Stolz was able to maintain that advantage 1.5 seconds when they came across the line at the start or the end of the first lap. But everything very calm at the minute, particularly in the 88. But of course what they have no control over is this car, the number 1 car, which is currently 9 points ahead in the championship. So Christopher Mies and Alex Riberas are going to have to do a lot of hard yards to get that car up to 4th position, assuming that we get the 88 Mercedes into the lead.
There's the tyre change, the wheel change after the puncture on the opening lap for Dries van Tor, straight back into the race. He is stone last. Just want to point out the car that's running in front of Christopher Mies is from the ACA ASP camp. Brought on board this weekend to do a job is Adam Christodoulou. Wait for it, there it is, the red Mercedes tucked in behind the number 1 Audi, then 8th and 9th, and that's the important thing, that from an ACA ASP point of view, that the Audi is kept back for as long as possible.
Yeah, and we know from what we saw yesterday, we know what we've seen in the past, that overtaking here is difficult.
So let's have a look at the white Audi. I've just been warned to look for that. So Marcello goes wide, going up to turn 2, looking for contact, hasn't come yet that we can see, and then we have Dries van Tor getting very, very close indeed and being pushed wide. That is why he dropped back. It was side-by-side contact, knocked him down to about 5th or 6th place. But what I want to know is what happened once they got out of turn 4, because that's when we saw the car going off onto the dirt on the outside. Couldn't quite see it because of the grouping, but Dries van Tor had been pushed back down into pack, possibly with a puncture already, possibly not, but there was further contact, and the end result was a puncture and that limp back to the pit lane.
Yeah, there's an overrun into turn 1 by Raffaello Marcello that offered up the chance for the number 2 Audi to get up on the long side, but it was on the outside going into turn 2, and there was that contact that was not unintentional. It's just a fact of life that if you're on the inside, you've got nowhere to go except to the outside, and if you're on the outside, you're trying to get back in onto the racing line. Contact, unfortunately, for number 2, and that set them back. They're now running in 18th position.
So Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi, just going through shot there, still behind the red Mercedes of Adam Christodoulou. Just want to highlight at the moment, Pro-Am class leader is running in 5th overall, but don't forget in a Pro-Am pairing you've got a Pro, and it is the Pro in the car at the moment. It's Carlo Van Dam in the TP12 Kessel Racing Ferrari, doing his utmost to score as many points as he can, but with only 3 Pro-Am runners in the race, the fact that Marcus Winkelhock is the last of the effective runners ahead of Dries van Tor matters not. It means he's going to be heading for a good helping of points, and that should be enough to wrap up the championship for Pro-Am honours in the Sprint Cup for 2018.
But it's this group of cars, 5th all the way down, probably to 12th, that are so compacted that everybody's being controlled by the pace of the car that's leading this group, and consequently the opportunity to get that run, get your momentum built up. The usual story. So everybody's got more or less the same top speed. There's the 17 going through Robert Friens, shares with Stuart Leonard. But it is going to be difficult for Christopher Mies to make much further progress. Adam Christodoulou in the 87 and ACA ASP entry, Bruce, as we've discussed, isn't going to be doing any favours to the number 1 Audi.
Most certainly isn't. So gap between 1st and 2nd says really very, well, it's actually come down a bit because Raffaele Marcello just set the fastest up in the race, but it's a second, then another 2 seconds back. Christopher Haas. Adam Christodoulou in a straight line looks very effective. Nothing Christopher Mies could do. Look for the red Mercedes. Looking at the green, number 19, Caldarelli Lamborghini being pushed very hard indeed by the number 17 Audi of Robin Friens, but it's the pair behind them, Adam Christodoulou, and he's not being harried by Christopher Mies. Christopher trying to keep his tyres as sweet as he can and not looking for any gaps, and Adam Christodoulou right now not leaving any.
The thing that was interesting was on the straight that the Mercedes seemed to have the legs over the number 1 Audi following. So again, out of that sequence of corners 2, 3 and 4, it's a bit slow turn, then back onto the short straight that leads into turn 5. And you can see just how much Adam Christodoulou could stretch the legs of the 87 Mercedes. Christopher Mies has made good progress on that opening lap from 13th up to 4th place, but now, as we've seen so frequently.
Okay, let's have a look at Audi 2 going wide. He just had the contact with the yellow and grey Mercedes of Raffaele Marciello. Christopher Haas starting to challenge and coming into the corner behind Caldarelli, back to about 7th place. Now what happened as they went into turn 4, which was the car that went wide? Well, number 2 goes wide, possibly because he's already got a puncture, the puncture on the other side. And he hits one of the tyre's already well down. He already hits the Seidler car.
I'm not sure whether the tyre damage happened on the exit of 2 or it happened as a consequence of the contact coming through 4. Whichever it was, we saw those 3 cars go way, way wide. And the outcome of it was that the number 2 Audi had to make a pit stop a long way round. It's a 5.1 kilometre circuit.
Well, it seemed they
changed. Look at the gap Bruce is closing down. It was just over a second, probably under that by the time they get across start-finish line.
It certainly did, John, but I think the fact it was the front left tyre that had to be replaced suggests it was the turn 2 incident, and that's now under investigation. Raffaele Marciello and Dries van Tor coming into contact, and the loser in that battle was Dries van Tor. First to second, now below a second. Okay, very early to be looking at the points, but if it stays as it is, Marciello and Meadows will take 93.5 points to end up the season 2 points ahead in the Sprint Cup. But Riberas and Mies, you feel they will have those wonderful Team WRT pit stops. They will use the tactics as well as they possibly can. They've just got to get a few more positions forward, and if they end equal on points, the advantage will go to Riberas and Mies, because it will be they have 3 wins, and even if the 88 Mercedes, this car we're riding with now, takes a win, it'll only be their second, so they will come second in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Meadows said on the grid they've got to win the race effectively. They cannot control what the number 1 Audi is going to do. Right now, they would like to find a bit of clear air, but there's no need right now to force the issue, because when it comes to the driver change, Hubert Haupt will take over the number 6. He is the silver driver in that silver operation, and Michael Meadows, as a pro driver, will take over the 88, and that balance should favour more the 88. But what's going to happen with the number 1, that's going to be a different deal, because Alex Riberas will be getting the car handed to him. Whether they'll bring in Christopher Mies early or late, well, that's what those guys in the pit wall are there. That's what they're paid to do, work out these strategies.
Dries van Tor, just taking a look at his pace, he's lapping just as fast as the race leaders and faster than the majority of the field, but he's way down at the back of the pack. He's running 18th. Jack Manchester didn't get to start the race. The car may be still being worked on in the Yaka ASP garage, but that now not really part of the mix at all. What the story of the race is the chase. The number 88 Mercedes, looking for championship glory, needs to win the race. It's running second behind the Black Falcon Mercedes of Lucas Stoltz, so a tidy gap back, 3 and a bit seconds back to Christopher Haas for the Sansalot Racing Team, then Kelvin van der Linde, then still running 5th, the leading Pro-Am car with Carlo Van Dam behind him. We have Caldarelli, and then Friens, etc., etc. But still, Christopher Mies hoping to take the championship, stuck behind Adam Christodoulou. We're riding with him now, the number 1 Audi, still down in 9th place.
Yeah, I mean, he's not making any progress. He's caught in that bit of racetrack where he can't do any more than he's doing. You can see on this occasion the Mercedes doesn't seem to pull away under brakes. You'd expect to see the Audi close up as it does, and then once under acceleration, that gap will then open up to what it would have been when they came across the line. Just half a second between the 2 cars on the start-finish line. But Christopher Mies, I mean, if you want to put a driver in an Audi to drag that result, not just the performance, the result, he would have to be one of the people in the WRT lineup that I would have to select.
What I'd like to know, though, John, is the natural pace of this car. Last time around, they lapped in 1 minute 57, whereas the race-leading duo in the Mercedes are lapping in the high 1 minute 55. So their advantage is going out all the time, and the cars just in front of them lapping in the high 1 minute 56. So if this could be a better lap, they're staying with the pace. But it often happens at concertina, you get stretched out and your pace just drops away from the race pace.
Yeah, I mean, we just got this group of cars, 6, 7 cars, 8 cars, all circulating more or less within a tenth or less than that of a second. The consequence being that when you get into the line, you get stuck on a line, and you can't really drop back as you might think you might like to do, because directly behind Christopher Mies is the 14 Lexus, and that's only 1.8 seconds as they came up. It's not a comfortable gap. Christopher Mies could drop maybe back even as much as by a second and then try and get a run, but Adam Christodoulou is not going to be any walk in the park to find a way around.
He certainly isn't. We just saw Alex Riberas looking very serious in the garage, but I heard a rumble, and Jack Manchester has just left the ASP garage, so he does come out into the race in the number 90 Mercedes. He'll be 6 laps down, or as close to that as possible, but these are the Mercedes that count at the moment. The Black Falcon car hasn't ceded its pole position. Lucas Stoltz, no intention of doing so. Very quick German driver, followed by a very, very quick Italian driver. It's just under a second. 1.924. And of course, in terms of points, it matters not either, because it's a Silver Cup car at the start of the race, and you take points according to your class position. But really, it's the overall points for victories. It's victory in the class that counts most entirely for the maximum points. 16.5 points for a win.
Yeah, but the key for Raffaele Marcello and then for Michael Meadows, who will take over this car, the pit lane window will be opening up in about 12 minutes' time. So whether the Mercedes 88 will think of doing an early stop, and my view is they'll keep Marcello in the car a little bit longer. They'll certainly keep Lucas Stoltz in the number 6 Mercedes, because obviously they're in this battle in the Silver Cup. But they're looking also for an overall or an outright victory. Probably less likely than the obvious class victory, but an overall victory for the number 6 car would probably be a bit of an upset, an overturn on form.
It certainly would. And just to reiterate, we've got the Silver Cup car leading the race, Lucas Stoltz. We've got a Pro-Am car, Carlo Van Dam, in 5th place overall, but everyone else ahead of Christopher Mies is in the overall running in the top class. So effectively, Christopher Mies and his teammate Alex Riberas are going to be taking the points for 7th place at the moment. Bear in mind, they need the points for 4th to sort the championship.
Yeah, but this race will really take on a different dimension when we do get to the pit stop with driver change, tyre changes, and that's when the final, well, what's going to have to be done? Who's going to have to get into that car? Alex Riberas is certainly going to have to get into the number 1 Audi, and other than we know that WRT Audi make outstanding pit stops, that's where they would hope to clear a lot of the traffic that's around them. But nevertheless, the ACA ASP Mercedes team currently 2nd. No slouches when it comes to getting the drivers turned around. Just have to make sure to take that extra second to make sure your seat belts, as was the case with the 63 car yesterday, they didn't get the seat belts across the top of the hands device, which is a mandatory requirement.
Yep, and obviously driver safety is of imperative importance, and thus the punishment. And then there was a sporting transgression after that, and so the 30-second penalty that dropped the 63 car, Bortolotti and Engelhardt, was issued to start with. That dropped them from 1st to 13th place, and then with the sporting transgression, unfortunately that led to their disqualification from not just yesterday's race, but the entire meeting. So they went out of the championship reckoning, making it a 2-horse race, and at the moment the race is a bit like a game of chess, John. A second between Lucas Stoltz leading the race, and Raffaele Marcello, who's trying his all to take victory this afternoon, because he needs victory to take the maximum point haul, because he knows there will be points going the way of the number 1 Audi. It's just a question of how many, but right now it's only the points for 7th place.
Well, you've got to think that the 39, the lead car in the Pro-Am category, Carlo Van Dam, when Pierre Bacti gets behind the wheel, he's not likely to match the pace of Michael Meadows. And then Robin Friens is going to hand over to Stuart Lender. That's going to be probably even Stevens. Adam Christodoulou hands over to Nicolas Jomain. Not going to be an easy walk. I mean, if you think that Adam Christodoulou is going to be a hard pass, then Nicolas Jomain is going to be probably as equally hard.
Yeah, and then if he wants to advance any further forward, he's got to try and outdo Steen Stockhorst, who will take over from Kelvin van der Linde, and Christopher Haas has got Simon Gachet about to take over from him. So some really, really well-balanced pairing. Delighted to say, message on screen saying no further action for the collision at turn 2, the side-by-side run between Raffaele Marcello's Mercedes and the number 2 Audi of Dries van Toor.
I mean, Dries van Toor had the pace off turn 1. He got up along, in fact, he got fractionally ahead of the number 88 Mercedes. But the difficulty is if you're on the outside, the car on the inside, the 88 was always going to be drifting out. It's very hard to hold that car in. And the inevitable contact, I'm not clear whether that contact led to the tyre being cut down. I think it might have occurred on turn 4 where it got a bit more messy. But anyway, the point of it all is it meant a pit stop for the number 2.
Now, one thing that's just been noticeable over the past few laps is that Robin Friens, who's just ahead of Adam Christodoulou, his pace has dropped off. Naturally, he's a bit faster now. That's an assist, and he's lost a bit of his rear wing accordingly. I think if you're talking about sporting infractions, that is very naughty indeed from Robin Friens. Of course, he wants to help his teammate, but that was blatant, and I think that was really remarkably unfair.
Yeah,
well, I've nailed my colours to the mast on that one. But
you have to say that was a team working as a team. And it gave Christopher Mies every opportunity. The mistake Adam Christodoulou did was staying on the inside. It allowed Christopher Mies to come down the outside and sweep around, and the contact between Robin Friens and Adam Christodoulou, that I suspect will also be viewed by the race stewards, because it looked a little bit like it was a loaded situation to give Christopher Mies the opportunity to jump 2 cars.
Well, it certainly happened. Let's take a look at them coming down the start of his straight. Robin Friens dropped off the tail of Andrea Cordarelli, so he dropped his pace. Then he put himself straight in front of Adam Christodoulou in the red Mercedes.
Did he brake?
I think he might have braked a little early.
I think he certainly braked really heavily at the point when they're in the braking zone, because Adam Christodoulou was on his brakes. But clearly the Audi looked to me to be slowing down. But we wait and see what the judgment will be on that particular incident. But
Jerome Policorn's having a look at his own little replay. He's the boss of ACA ASP. But another factor there, John, was the fact that the number one Audi with Christopher Mies, he was on the brake. He had to get in the corner, and he gained 3 car lengths in that braking area.
Absolutely, that's why I just wonder if there was an error at all, and was Adam Christodoulou trying to fight with Robin Friens and not being aware of what might be being played out, but allowing Christopher Mies a clear run down the outside to sweep around those 2 cars and almost effectively, you would almost imagine, I'm not going to say it was the case, you'd imagine that Robin Friens stayed on the brake pedal longer than he needed to slow Adam Christodoulou down even further.
So Christodoulou is the meat still in the Audi sandwich, but the roles have changed. A lap ago, 17 in the lead, but at this very point, the number one car had been let through, and Adam Christodoulou in the red Mercedes is now going to have to try and put himself back in front of the number one Audi. But right now, it looks as though Christopher Mies is able to make good his escape, and Robin Friens fighting back and really troubling. Warning flag for driving stand-ups, as we call them here. But the job has been done. He's got a little bit of rear bodywork damage. You can see where the front of the Mercedes hit the left rear of the number 17 Audi, all being watched from the pit wall by Brains Trust of Team WRT. ACA ASP not too happy in their camp either.
No, it's quite right. A sporting flag has been shown to the number 17 Audi. That was, let's say, a move that was not what I would call a normal manoeuvre. But there they are, the 2 key players in the management of the team. Job done.
And they're looking pretty happy.
It's all about position.
So let's take a look at the points. Marcello and Meadows 93.5, Riberas and Mies now 93.5, but they have 3 wins, and even if Marcello and Meadows wins this afternoon, they will only go to 2. So the team currently listed as second will actually take the championship. Long way to go.
Well, I mean, take all that in. So it's pretty clear that 88's got to win this race. If it never was clear before the start, it's certainly abundantly clear now, and the gap between the lead 2 cars is hovering around a second. It's up to 1.2 seconds. As we talked about earlier, I don't think the 88 is overly concerned about the lead currently, because when the driver changes take over, they feel that Michael Meadows will be able to find a way around the number 6 with Hubert Hart behind the wheel. What they are going to be concerned about is the pit stop that the number 1 car, the number 1 Audi will make, and Christopher Mies and Alex Riberas. This is going to be the best pit stop that WRT have ever made through the season, to get that car even further up, to put it into 4th place, to confirm that they will be the sprint champions.
Absolutely so. So the 2 Mercedes, the Black Forker Mercedes, the ACA ASP Mercedes, number 6 and 88, well clear. They're separated by a second, nearly 5 seconds between Marcello in 2nd place and the best of the Audis. Christopher Haas from Santalot Racing in 3rd place overall. But it's been what's happening behind effectively 7th place backwards, 7th, 8th, 9th. We had them shaken around, and Christopher Mies was 9th. He's now up to 7th, courtesy of a considerable helping hand from Robin Friens. Number 17 Audi, there is Friens in the yellow flashes on his wings. Not far ahead of the better of the Lexuses, Christian Klein, but we had nose to tail. This is quite a good drive by the new BMW driver, Dennis Dupont. He's gained several positions on his debut, moved across from TCR Racing, big step up to GT, but we have had a few incidents that have given him a bit of a helping hand, but you've got to be out there, you've got to be doing it. And someone who is doing it, though.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle in that Pro-Am category, ultimately, although the championship is effectively won by the 26 Audi, but for runners-up position between the 2 Ferraris, 33 and the 39, and you will see then the 2 AMs getting in behind the wheel. So while they're not close on track, one is in 5th place right now, the other is in 11th. It'll be interesting to see when those 2 drivers get behind the respective cars, what they can
do. It's absolutely level pegging between the first 2 Mercedes. They both rumble out of the corner. We've seen they're very quick in a straight line here at the Nurburgring. It really seems to suit them, but maybe lose out a little bit in the corners. But Lucas Stoltz gaining 1/10 of a second on the last lap, and he stretched to 1.2 seconds, his advantage at the front of the field. And the advantage over those behind continues to grow.
It's been a pretty metronomic drive from both Lucas Stoltz and Raffaele Marcello, matching each other more or less 4 lap times, a little 10th here, a little 10th there. So you can see that Marcello catches up fractionally in turn 3, then once they get through turn 4 they stretch their legs. So driver changes. Michael Meadows already suited and booted. So pit lane will open in just under 2 minutes. Now, I wouldn't anticipate Raffaele Marcello coming in early, but we don't know. It'll be what the team looks at their predictors and where would that 88 car fall back in, because even though it might be a car racing for the championship, it falls in behind another car that is not in the championship but got similar straight line performance, then you're really stuck.
So here we have it. Just to reiterate or to actually correct something I said earlier, and I apologise for this, it's actually points don't take into account the overall points people from other classes. So it's the points only for second place at the moment that are heading the way of the 88 crew. They have got to get ahead of the number 6 crew that's running in the Silver Cup. That puts them level on 93.5, but if Marcello can get into the lead of the race, or his teammate Michael Meadows, they get 16.5 rather than 12.
Yeah, but then what's going to happen to the number 1 if it falls, goes further up the field? So
I know, it's a constantly moving target, John.
It's a statistician's pleasure to sit and work out all the permutations. The fact is very clear, this car, 88's got to win the race. That's it, end of story. Number 1 has got to finish 4th. Basically 4th, and that's the bottom line.
And then there'll be still equal points.
Neither can control what the other is doing.
Yeah, let's not make it too complicated. Let's keep it as simple as possible. So 1.2 seconds remains the margin between Lucas Stones.
Oh, look at that. And that's an interesting bit of advertising for Pirelli. They'll like all that.
Yes, well, that's been found by young Riccardo Feller, who's starting from number 3 Audi from the 6th row. Had a fairly good run early in the race. He's down in 14th position, and he's found a little bit of something extra for his performance.
I'll tell you what, if he doesn't come in very quickly, he's going to find his engine overheating and possibly doing severe damage to it.
Well, the pit window's about to open in 1 minute precisely, so at the end of this lap will be just the right time for him to come in and make that pit stop. Sharing that car with fellow young racer Belgian Adrian Delina, with the young Swiss Riccardo Feller.
Don't know how he would have gotten the barrier. I mean, he must have touched somewhere around off the racetrack to get the Pirelli banner attached to the front of the car, and I can't see where around the racetrack he might have done that.
Hold on, was it reading back to front? No, let's not try and get too complicated, but anyhow, it's builded off, but he will be coming in. I am sure of that. The team will have noticed, obviously it's big on the screens. He's gained a little something all over the front of the radiators. Great run by Lucas Saltz. We saw a brilliant run from him in the Hungaroring last time out, and also a brilliant run from Raffaele Marcello, because he and teammate Michael Meadows took the first victory of the year for Mercedes over there in Hungary a few weeks ago. And certainly their pace looks very good indeed here. Look at the clock at the top of the screen. Once it gets to 35 minutes, the pit window should be open. That's the time still left in this race.
So either of these two drivers, if they so choose, could make it into the pit lane. They would be the first two that would be under the 35-minute second, and I do not see either of them doing so, no. They're going to hang it out there until, and the gap appears to maybe fractionally close. It was just over 1.2 seconds. I'll wait to see what it is when they come across the line at the end of their 13th lap. The gap is, and there's a very smoky, and that's the number 3.
The number 3 one.
What did I say?
Well, it's completely overheated, as you predicted, John.
The thing is just boiling like the proverbial pressure cooker, and that's the result of driving around with that piece of advertising. Cars now making their way into the pit lane.
Well, maybe they thought they could do one further lap. Maybe the team didn't quite see it in time.
Christopher Mies is in, as is Adam Christodoulou. So the number 1 Audi already in the pit lane. That's an early stop. Maybe a good move from WRT to get that car out of the group of cars directly ahead. So the number 1 car makes its way. It's the last pit box in the pit lane.
Well, so it gives us a clear visual, John, because Christodoulou in on the same lap. They weren't actually that close, or being held up by Andrea Caldarelli in the number 19 Lamborghini, but it's a tactical move, this. So Christopher Mies, his championship is run. It's now in the hands of his teammate, the Spaniard Alex Riberas, spotted on board. And after the misdemeanors yesterday with the straps, all drivers will be checking, and they strap their teammate in that the hands device is covered by the harness.
Yeah, and more importantly, a set of brand new sticker tires. The Mercedes, that is the ASP.
He's gained about 3 or 4 seconds on Adam Christodoulou's car, which is now being driven, the 87 car, by Nico Jamin, very impressive young French driver.
So brand new sticker tires for the number 1 Audi, which will give it an initial advantage. And clearly, again, the strategy from WRT is to save tyres, to give that car the best rubber available, and that's certainly the consequence. The number 3 we saw, only did roughly about half a lap or 3/4 of a lap with that banner on it, and the water temperature just went off the radar.
Certainly did, and don't forget, in fact, Christopher Mies almost forced that situation with new tyres because he saved a set by not using them in the final qualifying session. Q2, he went off early in the session, and that was a gift that's come back his way and compromised his qualifying position.
I call that a strategic move, not an accident leading to the beneficiaries.
Yes, looking back in retrospect, getting closer and closer. 0.8 of a second's become 0.6 of a second. 2 laps ago, it was 1.2 seconds, and Marcello just moving out of line, taking a look here and there. They know they can still go on for another 7 minutes or so before they need to dive into the pit lane.
Certainly the best part of 3 laps, I would imagine, if that's their choice. Need to keep an eye on that number 1, Alex Riberas, to see what his first flying lap is. On an out lap, he needs to go on to that first flying lap to get a gauge as to. Let's have a look and see. There it is. That happened up at turn 12. Up at turn 12. So all that's happening now is you've got no cooling whatsoever getting into the oil and water radiators in that alley. And he did the best part of a further lap until the thing cried enough. And as we saw, smoke, steam, whatever, coming from the radiator. Bits of it all around the racetrack also. Bits of that banner it's been tearing off all the way around, but not sufficient to let air get in and keep it cool. Look at the gap, the reduction on lap over the last 3 laps. 0.52, 0.330, 0.2. So bit by bit, Raffaele Marcello is shutting down the advantage. It was 0.6 of a second. Doesn't look like it's improved any further as you come halfway through. This is the 15th lap.
Up into turns 11 and 12 on the crest of the hill before they dive down out of 12. The fast right-hander. There is the smoking number 3 car. Ricardo Feller did not get that. Needed another couple of minutes, but it just goes to show how much cooling these engines need. You deny them of that and they will report back to you very quickly indeed.
Well, most teams run the amount of cooling they need. There isn't any spare capacity, so that saves weight. It's better for aerodynamics, but it means that if anything happens to get into the air intakes or the radiator, therefore you have to be aware of it. You need to have all the presets on your steering wheel, on your dash, flashing at you saying temperature issue, temperature issue. Maybe it wasn't observed, put it that way.
Maybe not. So Dries van Tor back into the pits for a second time. Of course, he came in. You can see the anger, slams the door. He wasn't happy about that puncture on the opening lap. And out he goes. But yesterday he was involved in a clash down at the first corner with Andrea Caldarelli. And you put the fear of whoever into him yesterday, saying he's coming up the pit lane to talk to you after the race.
I know, and that was funny listening to Dries trying to explain it, and the more you explain, the bigger the hole, deeper the hole you dig.
Well, here is Caldarelli, but he's not coming to speak to Dries van Tor this time. He's just bringing the 19 Lamborghini to hand over to Ezequiel Perez Compang.
The gap first to second actually is extended a little bit by just under 0.3 of a second to a fraction over 0.9 of a second. So there we go, the 333 Ferrari that was running in second place in the Pro-Am. So the number 39, the Carlo Van Dam, has remained out currently in 5th place, doing 1:58.9. There's the 19 making its way, and Ezequiel Perez compact behind the wheel.
Well, they had a good run yesterday. They came home in 3rd place, and if they hadn't been for that bold dive, or over-bold dive perhaps, Dries van Tor into this very corner.
Important for Alex Riberas to get ahead of the Lamborghini.
That just shows that was a really good tactic, because the Lamborghini was 3 or 4 seconds up the track before the pit stops, and now of course Alex Riberas is on that fresh set of rubber, an extra advantage.
More importantly, his out lap was 1:56.538, which is, I think, that should be actually 56.55 is the quickest. So that was a strong lap from Alex Riberas. He did what he needed to do, and he's given himself a free pass in effect with the 19 Lamborghini. So that's another step forward. So they ought to be, when this all washes through, should be running in a net 6th place.
Okay, and what we're seeing, I would suggest this will be the start of the last lap before these 2 Mercedes come in from the lead of the race. And waiting for the handover, Michael Meadows, because the clock, when it says 25 at the top of our screen, means only 25 minutes left. And if you come in after that time at the top of the screen, you don't get to pit entry, you're going to get a penalty.
Pit lane speed under investigation for car 55. Attempt to racing Peter Shorthorse and Pierre Caffer. We didn't see that. Michael Meadows, always placid, never looks to be excited, or the 25 in, so that's the Christopher Haase car has come in. So that's going to be a quick turnaround for Simon Gachet. They're not in the race per se, but they could assist with further progress for the number 1 Audi when this whole pit stop window starts to wash through.
So there it is, Christopher Haase hanging over to Simon Gachet. They started from 4th, they were running 4th. But this is the car that counts, the number 1 Audi. How much further up the order can he go? Christopher Mies has done his bit. Alex Riberas now really set it some good times. He's not going to get ahead of the Sansalot Racing Audi, that's come out ahead of him, but importantly, he got ahead of that green Grasser Racing Lamborghini behind him. Not only that, but he's dropping it, making it look easy.
But he's now got Simon Gachet directly ahead, and that's in a rival Audi team as part of the overall. There it is. So that's the next target for Alex Riberas to try and focus on. His last lap of 55.8, and that is just a 1/10 of a second away from the fastest race lap to date on the 3rd lap by Raffaele Marciello. So Alex Riberas has found the pace with that fresh set of rubber, and now we're waiting to see, with just barely a lap to go, if these 2 lead cars will both come in at the same time. It's most likely they will do. Yes, it is. So both coming in at the same time. So number 1 and number 2 last of the late pit stop and into the pit lane.
Had they been about 5 seconds further up the track, they could possibly squeeze in one more lap. There's no point trying to be bold, clever, because it would have been foolish. And so the 2 Mercedes, Luca Stoltz led the way from pole position, being chased all the way by Raffaele Marciello, and they come in together. But how good are these pit stops going to be? How many more places can be gained by the number 1 Audi while they're out on the circuit? I don't think it's going to come out ahead of these 2 come down the track, but he's got to just keep his eye on the next target up the track, which is waiting for the pit stops to be finished. We've just seen Robin Freets going back. Last few cars coming to make their calls, including the Pro-Am leader in this race.
Doesn't look like those are brand new tyres to me. They look like they've had a run. So the 88 comes down off the jack. It can't go until everybody's behind that yellow line, so it's rolling. So where's the number 6? It's sitting still up on its jack. So is this a pass? Again, it's a free pass in effect for the 88. Now it comes out behind. So good job by the ACA ASP team. Black Falcon a little bit behind in terms of overall pit stop time, and that's going to give the lead effectively now to Michael Meadows. It's his job, it's his race to win, but it's his championship to lose potentially.
Look which Audi is coming well. Looks like the Attempter car is just going to squeak out ahead of Alex Riberas. Down to turn 1 goes the 66 car, so Riberas, by my reckoning, I think that puts him up to 5th place overall. We'll just look for the final adjustments after the last cars made those pit hauls. He therefore needs to gain 1 position. There's the target right ahead of him, the 66 Attempter racing car. Stayed shot horse, the young Dutch racer, has taken over from Kelvin van der Linde and hasn't left the door open there. Has to cover it for the next few corners.
Yeah, I think Alex Riberas thought there might have been a little, give you a bit of space to come up the inside, but that door closed. So now for Alex Riberas, it's going to be a battle with a similar car which has got identical performance and basically identical lap time. So this is not going to be easy for the Spanish driver in the number 1. He's going to have to do it earlier than try and do it later. And if you miss your opportunities on these opening laps when somebody's done that driver pit stop change, then that opportunity's gone for the remaining part of your stint.
So pit window still says it's open. I think pit window moment has passed. Everybody has made their pit stops. And now it's a question of how many places can be gained. In 5th at the moment, the number 1 Audi needs to be 4th.
Looking to go off the inside into turn 11, but wasn't really far enough up to make it a viable. Now coming through turn 12 up the inside again. Maybe should have hung a bit higher and then tried to make the cut down and get the benefit and the exit speed. This circuit really is more about exit speed than being quick in the entry to a corner. So now he's got to be patient. He's too far behind to try and have a move up the inside into the chicane, and again just has to be patient. More about preparation, get the car positioned coming into and then through and the exit of this final turn. There is our race leader, there is the 2nd place car, there is the 3rd place car.
And 4th and 5th, you can hardly see the 5th place car. That's the car that's leading the championships, Alex Riberas, but he's not leading at the moment. Will Stevens has come in. Problems for the number 2 car. It had that puncture on the opening lap. That's its 3rd visit to the pits. I think it's over and out. They played their role or tried their hardest. It didn't quite come off for them in trying to keep Raffaele Marciello back at the start as they jostled over 2nd position. So Marciello leading the race. At the moment his advantage 3.2 seconds over Hubert Haupt. I expect that to go out. Haupt is a Silver Cup driver. Then Simon Gachet in third place, Dane Schothorst in fourth, and Alex Riberas in fifth. We're riding with him now. At the moment, he's getting no change at all out of the Dutch racer.
And you're not going to get any change. They're two separate teams. They all run under the family of Audi. That incredibly successful, the brand and GT3 Blancpain Sprint and Endurance. But they're racing for their own position in the championship. They're not obliged to. Now, if they got a call from somebody in WRT to say, look, we can win this championship, it's good for everybody in the family, would you make it a little bit less difficult than you're currently doing? I don't know what the outcome of that would be. Don't want to even go there, to be honest, Bruce.
No, absolutely, John. So still the fastest lap of the race with Raffaele Marcello. Don't expect any quick times for a while, but if they were going to come, I would suggest they'd be coming sort of now from the number one car, but Alex Riberas has done quite a few laps on these tyres now.
Yeah, they were a new set when they were on the car, but what is interesting, he gives a big lift going into the Schumacher S's. Now that's fundamentally the consequence of running behind this number 66. He's just losing a little bit of aero on the nose of the car, and he therefore loses momentum.
Okay, look at the graphic on the screen. As it stands, Marcello and Meadows leading the race. Meadows will end, if they stay like this, as champions by 1.5 points from Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies. But if Christopher Mies can, his teammate Alex Riberas can gain one more position, then it'll go back to being absolutely level all over again.
So again, for Alex Riberas, he's got to focus on this particular part of the circuit. He needs to get himself to be slightly better off turn 16, because if he's following essentially what the 66 Audi's doing, he's going to follow at the same speed down the hill into the braking zone.
Dane Schothorst has already responded because that was his fastest lap of the race, but it looked like a better exit from turn 16. The final corner certainly seemed to be gaining as they cross the start-finish line in front of our commentary position.
Something's going on, a call. Vincent Voss.
Voss the boss is going to talk.
Well, I wonder, I mean, that's not a call of nature, I can assure you of that. So probably something more of a political, would that be a walk down to a Tempto and say, listen guys, I mean, the best person to do it is the boss of the business. Go down and speak to the boss of a Tempto Racing and say, look at the big picture, look what's going to be the future, what we've got coming.
Well,
or maybe it was a call of nature, maybe I'm being disingenuous.
Well, it could be. If he has the full half-hour argument, it'll take too long. If it's just a 5-minute chat, then there's still a chance that it could bear fruit for the number one crew of Riberas and Mies. Riberas doing everything he can, but at the moment it's not enough, and the car's really understeering a little bit through the corners there. Just noticed, John, again, as you pointed out, stuck in behind the Schothorst car in the slipstream. It just doesn't help. You have the air off the nose of your car.
I mean, you may have a little breathe coming into the Schumacher S's, but that's a full-off lift from Alex Riberas, so he can't maintain the advantage or the momentum that he had coming up the hill. He's got to get out of it, and therefore the bit from the exit of the S's up to turn 11, where you do see overtakes take place. It's not common, but it is possible if you get that run and you've got the momentum, but Alex Riberas not able to do that.
So just to reiterate the points at the moment, if one place can be gained by Riberas, we're watching him trying. He has to get up to 4th place. He'll be equal on the same score as Marcello and Meadows, presuming they go on to win this race. Not a given, but that's how it's looking at the moment. But by dint of having 3 wins to what would be becoming 2 wins for Marcello and Meadows, they would take the title. That is the number one Audi crew. Alex Riberas at the wheel and Christopher Mies sweating it out in the pit garage at the moment. The pit garage that Vincent Voss, the team boss, has just gone running out of the back off. He's got someone to see, a question to ask, we presume.
Well, is he, what's going on?
And here's the Intento garage. That's not his team. Have they run away? We will see. Are they playing hard to get, or has he had the words?
I think even
the body language didn't suggest there were words that were responded to.
It didn't look positive, you have to say. I think, Bruce, you got that one spot on. And you'd have to be pretty swift on your feet to catch Vincent Voss, both on the way down and then the way back up to his own pit. So this is going to be a position that's going to have to be won on the racetrack. And right now, Dane Schothorst is doing a sufficiently strong job. And you could see in the last lap, the gap, or the gap was just 48/100ths of a second, but the best is 7/10ths of a second. So the number one Audi is fractionally the quicker of the 2 cars in a lap. But as we keep repeating, you get behind another car and it controls your pace.
Okay, another
and even look, Hubert Haupt, who is the silver driver, and he's done a great job. He's hanging in there with Michael Meadows, who's a full-on pro. And Simon Gachet is now closing up to the back of the 2nd place Mercedes. That's only a 2-second gap.
Well, Vincent Voss still on the prowl, going back to the pit wall. No, he's going to find, is that the Santalog pit wall he's going up to, or his own? Is that Thierry? That's his own pit wall. Thierry Tassin turning to find out what has occurred down there. But just want to point out that neither of the Mercedes at the lead of the race, first and second, are lapping terribly fast. About half a second a lap, if not slightly more, down on this pair of Audis.
Well, interesting, on the last lap, Hubert Haupt was actually slightly quicker by 0.3 of a second than Michael Meadows. Michael is a pro driver, Hubert Haupt is not a pro driver, a very capable and accomplished driver. So those two cars, and they've only got between first and third, it's only 4.5 seconds. Okay, 4.5 seconds is better than 0.5 of a second, but I would have imagined that the 88 might have been able to pull away more comfortably.
Yeah, he certainly would. I thought once he got into position, but still, this is the battle for fourth place. The fourth place that's so vital. Belgian Audi Club Team WRT to the championship hopes. The very essence of this final race of the 2018 Sprint Cup. They need to get the #1 car up into fourth place, and for now it stays blocked up behind the Attempto Racing number 66 Audi, a team at the last 11th hour coming into this year's championship decided to move across to Audi. They took a victory in the second race of the opening round. Steenschot Horse, Kelvin van Linde, very, very strong pairing, and they're trying to do their best to prove they're the top Audi team.
The gap between third and fourth, or fourth and fifth place, is half a second, give or take 100th or so here or there. So I think Alex Riberos has begun just to creep slightly closer, but the overall pace of the two cars for all intents and purposes is identical. And even if he does get within 0.3 of a second, then he's still got the problem of where am I going to make the pass? A little bit wide on the entry into the Schumacher S's for the 66, and again there's little ticks like that give you the sense that maybe his tyres beginning to give up, the left front maybe beginning to give up, maybe there's something about the overall handling balance that's not quite as good as it was at the beginning. So those are the little tells that Alex Riberos will be looking for from the rear of the 66 Audi.
Yeah, certainly looking at their lines, far more precision through turn 12, the right-hander that goes into the dip that drops down before you rise up to the chicane. So he's going to be trying to build on those tiny little advantages, but you need a fair advantage to be able to really stand a strong chance of making a passing manoeuvre.
Nice exit for Steen Schoenhorst, gets a late apex, which is what you really want.
Here's Chris Reinker of Audi, just coming out to have a little talk to Vance Boss. But look, the clock on the top of the screen, it's tumbling down, just under 16 minutes remaining, so negotiations are going to have to be very rapid indeed. The gaps continue to come down. Riberos and Stotthorst, well, they're catching the overall race leaders, but right now it's just about this one position that really counts.
Yes, and that's a heavy-duty meeting that's going on right now on the WRT Audi team pit wall, because if the championship is lost, where you can always work out a deal. I mean, motor racing has always had great wheelers and dealers. Sometimes you look at the big picture or you look at the immediate picture, and I think this is looking at potentially a big picture.
Now, what has been masked in all of this, we came into this race meeting with 5 crews that could take the overall championship, but the progress through the year and through this meeting, almost masked by all of the comings and goings at the top of the table, is the consistent improvement from the 66 crew that's holding down 4th place. They could finish this championship in 3rd place. They'll move ahead of the 63 Lamborghini crew, who are out of it disqualified from this meeting, and that is why they're hanging on so hard.
Absolutely,
so that's 4th place.
Absolutely right to do so, because you're not racing for your immediate competitor, albeit you're the same brand. You're racing for your own team, and if they've got an opportunity to jump ahead of the 63 Lamborghini and finish 3rd in the championship, that's an accolade that Attempto Racing would be more than happy to walk away from this event with.
Well, it certainly will, and as I just want to point out, before the opening round at Zolder, it was only a handful of weeks before they said we're going to go with Audi. So they astounded us by taking a 4th place and a victory in the opening round. We knew they were a good driver lineup. That was impressive. Then they went on to take the victory in the second race. But it's so close, less than 0.4 of a second between 4th and 5th, and now it's looking down the inside. That's not going to work for Alex Riberos, but he's got to start doing stuff. He's got to get past on his own merit. He knows that now.
Yeah, but he's got within that 0.3 or so of a second, and he was looking it down the inside, but it meant that he was going to have to brake later, and he would have a shorter distance in which to slow the car down. The outcome would have probably meant he would have overshot the exit of the corner, which would have allowed the 66 to make the undercut and get back into this current 4th position. So you have to make your plans and think, where can I do it? But not jeopardize any potential gain by overshooting and then being overtaken.
Well, the longer it goes on, the longer Chris Riker is going to have to try and work out how he can separate the roaring parties with a smile.
He's enjoying it. He's actually enjoying this battle.
Is he saying, right, you've agreed you'll buy your cars for a higher price next year? We will see. But still, in this Audi battle over 4th place, we wouldn't normally just focus on 4th place, but of course we are, because this is the closest battle. It's also the battle that could decide the outcome of the 2018 Blancpain Sprint Cup. Gap between first and second is 1.5 seconds. Great run from Hubert Haupt. I suggest that Michael Meadows is simply pacing it, just has to keep the gap. He knows they have to win the race. With 12 and a bit minutes remaining on the clock, they're looking set to do that. That's in the yellow-nosed 88 ACA ASP Mercedes, but you can see Hubert Haupt not far apart. In fact, first down to 5th, 8 seconds on the start-finish line last time around. I think it's coming down yet further. These are going to close right in, but from Michael Meadows' point of view, as long as he stays in the lead of the race, as long as the number 1 Audi stays in 5th place, bottled up by Stage Shot Horse in the attempt to racing Audi, then the title will be his to share with Raffaele Marciello.
Yeah, Michael Meadows has no challenge from the number 6. He is in the lead, he's lapping at a very comfortable pace. He's not lapping at the pace of the cars running in 4th and 5th, or even in that matter, in 3rd. They're running in the high 156s, Michael, but last lap was a 157.0. But all he is doing is driving to the flag. He doesn't need to win by a minute or 30 seconds. If he wins by 1.5 seconds, which is the gap between 1st and 2nd, and Vincent Voss still, you can see, stroking his chin and wondering what's going to happen. Can we manage? Is there a miracle left in the tank for this number 1 Audi to get up into that absolutely necessity of winning or winning the championship, but getting 4th place?
Very, very tricky indeed for all the parties concerned. Don't want to get lost in this. A great run from Simon Gachet, heading for potential 3rd place. Took over from Christopher Haas, who started 4th on the grid. Of course, they gained a place when the car that started 3rd, the number 2 Audi, picked up that puncture going out of turn 2 and dropped right down the order. But it's just, it is nip and tuck, but you really feel Alex Riberas, he hasn't even looked half close as yet. He hasn't shown his hand perhaps, but the moments are going to tick away with every passing lap that he doesn't make a move. It's getting harder and harder for him.
Yeah, and up through Schumacher S's, and look, Raffaele Marciello on there. Well, he's not playing Game Boy or something like that. He's obviously focused. He realizes the camera's on him, so puts the phone down and is studying the timing and scoring. There is the situation between 1st and 2nd. It's been around 1.5 seconds for the last number of laps, but there is no pressure on Michael Meadows. This is in effect a very comfortable Sunday afternoon run here at Nurburgring. 3rd place Audi is gradually closing down. I mean, Michael Meadows' lap times are still within a few tenths of the pace of these battling Audis for 4th and 5th place. Watch and see, can Alex Riberas get closer, needs to get really on the throttle as early as possible, runs wide on the exit, has to correct the rear of the car, but in the slipstream, this might be the first chance. Looks too far from the onboard camera, but that's a wide-angle lens, tends to make distances look greater than they are, but decides the better of it, and no, I can't do it this time. 10 minutes of this race remaining, Bruce.
And one good thing, there aren't any back markers who seem to be in the way, who even fallen back far enough to be lapped, that will obstruct this passage. This is an out-and-out race. Don't forget also for Raffaele Marciello, he's leading the overall Blancpain GT Series as well, and spread across the Sprint Cup and the Endurance Cup races.
That was about as close as these two cars have got coming through turn 3. Alex Riberas thought about sending it down the inside, but the penalty is you're on the wrong part of the racetrack coming out of turn 4. So time running out 9.5 minutes. That half minute's gone so quickly. So Audi are going to be wondering whether there will be any cooperation between the respective outfits, the Tempter Racing and WRT. You know, there could still be...
It could be done on the last lap. We
could
do
there be
not
a joker
know.
in the race?
Could there be? But what we see at the moment is Michael Meadows is leading, sitting on an advantage, 1.5 seconds. But there is the championship as it stands. Marciello and Meadows, that would fine. They had to take victory. They're heading for victory. No challenge, but a good push from Hubert Haupt. But it's the 4th place that's required by Riberas and Nies. If they do that, they'll move equal on to 98 points. But by dint of having 3 wins to what will become 2, the 88 Mercedes crew of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows, they will take the title. It's that close, but this move we've been watching and waiting for it for a quarter of an hour now. It hasn't happened.
No, and I mean there are periods of just on this last lap through turn 3 where Riberas got really as close as I've seen since he took the wheel of the number 1 Audi. Again, closes up fractionally. And we go back to the WRT pit, on the pit wall, and conversations going on thick and heavy between engineers, team principals and managers and whatever. Again, not sufficiently close to think about a lunge down the inside. You probably would end up doing more damage. One thing you wouldn't want to do at this late phase is lock up a wheel target, a massive vibration, which would really destroy any prospects of having a chance to take 4th place.
So nail-biting times here as we're deep into the final 10 minutes of the race. 8 minutes left. And the number 1 Audi still chasing. Raffaele Marciello still staring at the screens. His car is most likely heading for victory. Adam Christodoulou offers his comments from aside. He did the first half of the race. He kept for quite some while that number 1 Audi behind him, did his bit, but then with a bit of, how should we say, into Nissan, well, not even into Nissan, back, a little help from another team WRT car who was bottled up behind Robin Freitz, possibly even hit the back of him. That allowed Christian Mies to gain 2 positions around the 2 of them, and that's what enabled him, plus a very good tactic, a good pit stop to come out into 5th place, just behind the 66 Tempo Racing Audi, but he stayed there ever since. Had he been another half second further down the track, he might have gone ahead just before Stone Shot Horse could get up to speed coming out of the pits, but there he is, bottled up, 7 minutes remaining.
I mean, it is frustrating for Alex Riberos to be, he knows he needs to get into 4th place. He knows the only way he can do it is just by being quicker than the car is following the 66 Attempto Audi, but he equally knows he can't do something that's reckless that would involve possibly contact and therefore the potential of being penalised for unnecessary contact.
Lap after lap after lap. Shot Horse holds on to the 4th place that Alex Riberos so desperately wants and needs to take this title. He wants the number 1 on the door of his car to be echoed by number 1 in the championship table. But at the moment, as Vincent Vos goes back to the pit wall, we still don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is Hubert Haupt is running an excellent race in that blue Mercedes, but leading the way by, it was only just under a second now down on Michael Meadows. Michael Meadows pacing it out. Raffaele Marciello still not sure what's happening, but he just knows his car has to win this race. What happens behind, totally out of their hands. And between Haupt and this battle between Shot Horse and Riberos, Simon Gachet 3 seconds down on Hubert Haupt. So the top 4 covered by top 3 covered by just 4 seconds. It's very close. In fact, the top 5 covered by 8 seconds.
But there I would say the only hope that now that Alex Riberos would have is if we had a field that was double the size of this and getting into the lapped traffic. But the car directly ahead is a competitive car running in 3rd place. So that's not going to be any asset either. So it's just simply now, Alex Riberos, you've got 5.5 minutes to get the job done. It's in your hands.
So it is. So thank you very much to Watty, who's going to scale bridge and slide down ladder or pole or whatever to get to do the post-race interviews. Who he'll be interviewing as the overall champion remains to be seen, but I'm sure it's going to be very exciting down below Parc Fermé. So Watty heads off at great speed. Great speed is being shown now by Hugh Haupt. He's getting closer and closer. 0.955 of a second down on the race-leading Mercedes of Michael Meadows. Here comes the 3rd place car. Sancelot Racing entry of Simon Gachet, and then this is the critical battle, 4th and 5th place. In fact, being caught by Ezequiel Perez Compact, I fancy, over the last couple of laps. But the number 1 Audi riding on board now with Alex Riberos. That needs to get ahead of Stayne Shot Horse. He hasn't managed it in nearly 20 minutes. So with under 5 minutes on the clock, he has got to make his move very, very soon if he wants to take the the Sprint Cup title, which he so definitely does. So things getting closer and closer. Hubert Haupt, he's going to try and get right onto the tail of Michael Meadows. Wake up, Michael. I know he's got it under control, but 1.2 seconds became 0.9. It's now become 0.65 of a second. And imagine as we have these confusions between the Audis, who's going to help who is not going to help who. Certainly if the Black Falcon Mercedes dive up the inside, the door has been left open by Stayne Shot Horse. I think the word may have been had because he wouldn't have been caught napping like that, but he's fighting back, so maybe he was simply half asleep, but it was a brave dive. But don't forget, that was the very corner where the number 2 Audi had a clash side by side and picked up a puncture in the first lap of the race. Down the inside comes Riberos. He's got desperate. He's pushed the 66 car wide. Was the contact? I do not know, but certainly I can't understand why it was all so easy down at turn 1. But again, Stayne Shot Horse fights back. Maybe this is for real. Let's hope it is. And certainly Alex Riberos is doing his utmost. Now the corner goes Riberos' way because they've got to go to their left. So Shot Horse is going to be pushed wide out of turn 5. Ezequiel Perez Compact's car with Andrea Calderon is getting closer and closer. The Lamborghini could mix this up as well if he goes past Alex Riberas. Oh, Raffaele Marciello thinks they've survived that one. Has the Lamborghini gone past? Certainly the 66 Audi still in front, and he's passed both of them, so down into 6th place, but Stain Short Horse has made a few little mistakes, and now I think there is possibly a puncture, because off at the bottom of the hill goes the number 1 Audi. Thierry Tassin, Vincent Voss cannot bear to look at their screens. It was a real couple of serious examples. I thought the position was being handed over, but they were brave dives from Alex Riberas. Stain Short Horse does not know when he's beaten. Out of the gravel, desperately trying to continue. Is there a puncture? You certainly feel there must be. When he went off the bottom of the hill, Alex Riberas, cruel luck. He made 2, if not 3 moves. They slowed each other down with their fighting. The Lamborghini came up and joined in there to make things very complicated, but it appears simple now. The 4th place that was so desperately needed is not in the hands of Alex Riberas. He's fallen back to 6th, possibly 7th or even 8th. So with 2.5 minutes remaining on the clock, it matters not whether the yellow Mercedes wins this race, but Michael Meadows desperately wants to. He's been chased so hard by the Black Falcon Mercedes. 1st and 2nd they are, but what position is Riberas going to be in when he crosses the start-finish line? He's fallen. We saw him lose a few places, waiting for him to come through. Is he going to come through on the track or in the pits? It looks like he's possibly going into the pits. He's into the pits. He's in 9th place. He's fallen down. The title shot has been fired and it has not hit the target. So Alex Riberas, cruel form. It looks like the door was open into turn 1, but maybe not. Maybe Short Horse just simply wanted a wider line into the corner, because he fought back on the exit of turn 1, fought back again in turn 2 and turn 3, turn 4 and 5, and then through turn 6 it looks like there's a bit more contact, and that is where the Lamborghini went past one of them, and there Riberas parking up, not in the mood for celebration. You have to feel for Riberas. He waited, he tried to find his moment, and then in the dying minutes he made his moves. He attempted to pull it off. Pat on the tail for him, and applause. He gave it his all. Wasn't getting any assistance there from Stain Short Horse, who is in 4th place, holding up to that 4th place, being pushed very hard indeed by Ezequiel Perez Compact. But good to see sporting support as the dejected Alex Riberas walks for a quiet moment on his own, and now Raffaele Marciello understands that the title is almost in his pocket. Let's take a look at the replay. 2 or 3 car lengths behind and braking very late. Up the inside dives Alex Riberas. It looked as though, that was a very late dive. This is the replay. And look at Vincent Voss. He is leaping up and down on the wall. He thinks that is, he thought it was working his way, then it wasn't, and then keep a look at his face. Diving up the inside goes Riberas into turn number 3. He gets through. The place is his. Stain Short Horse is over and out. No, he isn't. He's got a better run through turn 4. It's going 1. No way. It's going back the other way all over again. At this point, you still thought he's the number 1. Audi's in the right position to take the 4th place down into turn 4, but Stain Short Horse refuses to back off, and then suddenly the number 19 Lamborghini is in the mix as well, and then Short Horse out of turn 6 is back in front. The Lamborghini goes through as well, down to the bottom hill. Raffaele Marciello watches that live, and then down the bottom hill, possibly with the puncture that's brought him back into the pit lane. The Audi just simply cannot get into the corner and goes into the gravel, kisses that, and at the very moment the Lamborghini is passed back by the 66 Audi. How much drama do you want? The clock has beaten to the top of its path to the top of the clock. We're waiting as the 2 Mercedes at the front of the field come round for the final time. Hubert Howard's having a fantastic run. Michael Meadows has done just enough to deliver the victory the ASP Mercedes team knew it needed in this race. Come what may, they said it's simple, we have to win the race. They are going to do that. Raffaele Marciello cannot start leaping up and down in the ASP garage just yet. The final part of the lap still to be negotiated, but it was the question of whether Riberas and Mies get the number 1 Audi up into 4th place. My golly, they tried, and it didn't quite work out. So much drama in this last lap and a half, but right now Michael Meadows can relax. The team will have raided him coming into turn 12, down the dip, up through the chicane, up to the final corner, and the Sprint Cup title is awaiting you for 2018. What a championship this has been. Started at Zolder, went to Brands Hatch, Misano. The Hungaroring races were in the wet, and now in perfect conditions at the Nurburgring. The rumbling sound of those 2 Mercedes AMGs, and importantly the one in front is the yellow and grey one, the Race Scout car from ACA ASP. Michael Meadows coming round. They won the 2nd race in the Hungaroring. They have won the 2nd race here, and with it the title for 2018. A brilliant run to 2nd place. by the Black Falcon crew, and for Audi it could have been their day. It so nearly was, and you really do have to feel for Christopher Mies and for Alex Riberas. They gave it their utmost, but with that fighting, feisty, never say die fourth place for Attempto Racing, Stain Schotthorst, building on the work done by Kelvin van der Linde, has ensured that Audi from the team WRT camp do not have a driver with the Sprint Cup title this year. So Michael Meadows will be savouring the moment as he comes home for the 88 ACA ASP Mercedes crew. They, let me reiterate, are the 2018 Blancpain Sprint Cup champions. They fought hard, they were the underdogs, and the Pro-Am winner and champion. Not winner on the day, that was the 333 Ferrari, but taking third, that was all they needed to do. Niels Stevenart and Marcus Winkelhock, who started the race from the pit lane to make sure they weren't caught up in any first lap trouble. They secured it. They came here in second place in the Pro-Am Championship, led all season by the TP12 Kessel Racing Ferrari crew, but yesterday Piti Bhirombhakdi knocked out of the race. He's just crossed the finish line now. It's been a cruel shame for the Thai racer, but eventually ends that championship in third place, in second place overall, third here on the day in the Pro-Am race. So the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari won that. That was the car that assaulted Piti Bhirombhakdi down at the hairpin yesterday. But to Mercedes and ACA ASP and the 88 crew in particular, that's Raffaele Marcello and Michael Meadows, bring it home. Today is their day. This is their year. Raffaele Marcello still has another Blancpain prize. He'd very much like to win the overall GT title for this year, spread across the combined Sprint Cup and Endurance Cup rounds. But the focus this weekend was this one, the Sprint Cup, and they have nailed it.
Good job.
Good job all around. 19, you can see bearing the scars of battle. I think that was actually where the 66 Attempto car fought its way back at the hairpin to resist the challenge of Ezequiel Perez Compact to make sure he held on to that fourth place, and that would tally, went up the inside, so would have hit driver's side of the passenger side of the car. Wow, so much drama. And in that we had two Lexuses in the top 10 as well. So look at the results. Half a second was the margin of victory. It could have been 0.01 of a second as far as Meadows and Marcello was concerned. They needed the win, they got the win. Great chase by Hubert Hout and Lucas Stott. Simon Gachet, Christopher Haas, they'll be on the podium in third overall, just 5 seconds down. But Stain Schotthorst and Kelvin van der Linde really fighting drive. They did their everything to keep the number one Audi behind them. The number one Audi that so needed that fourth place to take the title. It came to a clash, it came to a puncture. And for Alex Riberas, back to the pit garage, back to despondent life. But for no such despondency for Raffaele Marcello, tall Italian, leans down and just can't wait to yank his teammate out of the car. Michael Meadows, they won in Hungary, they've won here as well. And yes, that meant a lot for him. The pressure was heaped on the British driver's shoulders in the second half of the race. He had to make sure it came home, and come home it did, for the victory that was so needed. Waiting for Michael Meadows to put his helmet off. We've seen the facial expressions for so long for Raffaele Marcello, but what is down there? Lucas Stoltz is there congratulating the winning crew, but Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marcello, the 2018 champions.
Michael, fantastic. Congratulations to you and Raffaele. What a lovely day.
Yeah, you know, the weekend looked tough after not a great qualifying for myself, but you know, we didn't make any mistakes. We kept our heads, and it's come home. You know, we've been really consistent all year, and I just got to thank the team. They did a fantastic job all year. We've improved every race, so that's all you can ask. And obviously Raffaele's done an unbelievable job. He's so fast, and we have a really good rapport, and everything seems to flow nicely. So, you know, it's a little bit tense. I didn't know what was going on with the one car, to be honest. I saw something on the screen, but I didn't know where they were. So, yeah, the radio silence was intriguing at best.
Well, great job. Raffaele didn't get the lead at the start, but you're never really too concerned about the number 6, were you? Because it was in a different race.
I mean, Luca had a good start. I was able to keep P2. That was quite important for us to stay in front of the Audi. Then, yeah, I tried to stay as close as possible to Luca, and because I knew we had a good pit stop, so we entered into pit really close. Then it was just to see where the car number 1 was going to finish the race. I mean, we had a bit unlucky weekend with the penalty of Lambo. We lost quali, pole by nothing, so we lost many points not for our reason. So I mean, winning the sprint championship with Michael, with Aka, with Mercedes, good points for the overall. So I mean, I'm super happy.
Well, I think you're going to the big news story in Italy tomorrow, not your fellow team.
Well, I don't think so much.
Don't worry, you won. Michael, last words quickly.
Sorry, say again, John?
Last few words.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. You know, I think it's the first time, off the top of my head, I could be wrong, that AMG have won the sprint title. You know, it's been dominated by Audi in the past, so to come and deliver and step up like we have is fantastic. You know, everyone's done a great job. I think we can be really proud of what we achieved, and like Lello said, for his overall championship, it's important as well because, you know, the overall is just as important as the sprint.
I think Dad had a good day today as well.
Did he? I didn't see the end of the race.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away. He had a good day.
That's referring to Michael Meadows' father, who works in Formula One. Ron Meadows, with many success. Aha, that's a nice board to put in front of your car. Maybe he's going to try and take it home. Lello Marciello. Lello is his nickname, of course. Ready for the photographers. So let's go across to the interview with the second race crew, Luca Stoltz and Hubert Hout, who drove a blinder.
Luca, that was as close to being a perfect drive for you when you took the lead, never conceded it.
Yeah, definitely. I had a pretty good start. I think we leave enough space for Rafael, and then I think he touched with the number 2 Audi, but yeah, my start was perfect, and I could lead the race all the way too. I could control it basically, and yeah, I could make a gap a little bit. Still struggling a little bit in the pit stop. You know, for us it's yeah, we're entering new in sprint. We just do 2 races, and then yeah, it's not perfect, but anyway, we are really happy to be first in silver and second overall.
Congratulations. Herbert, where do you place that drive in the ranks of your best drives ever?
I think it was one of the best drives ever. It was fantastic. We lost a little bit in the pit stop, so the car number 88 overtook us, but could go the same speed. I was even a bit quicker, so fantastic to win the Silver Cup. Overall second, we never expected that.
Congratulations.
So a lot of pride there. Hubert Hout, one of the oldest driver in the field, and certainly not showing that today, keeping Raffaele Marciello, in the second half of the race, Michael Meadows on his toes. So great deal of pride for the Black Falcon crew. But let's go down to the third place crew. Really great run from Simon Gachet and Christopher Haas to third place.
Christopher, were those some of your dancing moves you're going to be doing tonight? You're doing a bit of, you know, movement. Show us what you were doing.
Oh yeah, you're right. Exactly. That's what we're going to do.
Do it
tonight.
now. Oh, you never catch anybody with that. Well done, fantastic drive.
No, I have to say, car was really great. The Santa Luca Audi just was a weapon in the beginning of the race, and they did a really good job also in the pit stop. And we were able actually to make a little bit of a gap between the 66 behind us. And unfortunately, I couldn't follow the Mercs. They were a little bit faster than us today. But anyway, Simon Gachet, the secret weapon again. Fantastic job at the end and podium. I'm happy.
All right, secret weapon. Give us your story quickly.
It's fantastic. After my mistake yesterday at the start, I achieved this with another podium. So it's fantastic for us, for Santa Luca, and for me.
Well done. Enjoy it. On the podium, guys.
Thank you.
Good work. Watty, busy man down below the podium. All those drivers very relieved. The Sprint Cup has come to an end. There are the points, 134.5 points. It looks so that's in the Pro-Am Cup. That's Marcus Finkelhock and Niels Stevenart. Piti Bhirombhakti and Carlo Van Dam led the all championship, but being knocked out of yesterday's race really cost them. They came home second in class today, but that wasn't enough to claw their way back, even though they finished ahead of this year's Sprint Cup Pro-Am champions. And Christian Malczarek and Jirko Malczarek also came out and gave it a shot midpoint of the season, but those 2 crews well clear at the top of the Pro-Am Cup table. There we have it. Overall points, 98 points. So it looked like a big victory, 7.5 points at the end, but that was only in the final lap and a half that it went their way, because hunting them down, Alex Riberas knew he had to get 1 place. And as you can see, Van der Linde and Schothorst in the final race, the last round of the Sprint Cup, moved ahead of Dries van Tor and Will Stevens and Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt to vault into 3rd place overall. So that's why Stein Schothorst was fighting for every single inch he could find out on the circuit and held on to that 4th place to the finish with quite a fight. But overall for 2018, the Sprint Cup belongs to Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows. So in the room behind the podium where the stories are told, the shoulders are slapped and other shoulders sometimes slump in disappointment. There'll be no disappointment from the ACA ASP crew that won the race and won the title. We'll see them on the podium very soon indeed. But Hubert Howe talking long and hard with the ACA ASP boss Jerome Policon, who I'm sure will step out onto the podium. Great pride for the former racer in the exploits of his team for Mercedes. Really made themselves a very strong team over the past 2 years. Much, of course, as Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT, have done in the years before that and right up to today for Audi. Tall figure of Jack Manchester coming up to congratulate he and his teammate Nico Bastian, who's behind, talking to Jerome Policon. Took the Silver Cup. They were so far ahead of points that they won it at the last round at Hungaroring. Didn't need to deliver today, which is a good thing, bearing in mind they had a gearbox problem and started several laps behind everybody else. Eventually getting to the finish 6 laps down on the leaders. But again, it's all about more experience. Nico Bastian has plenty of experience, but Jack Manchester gaining experience all the time, so every lap he could do was an extra benefit. And for the mechanics, for the fastest pit stop, well, they're wearing the colours of Belgian Audi Club Team WRT, €2,000. That will help a little bit of celebration for the guys. So the disappointment of not winning the Sprint Cup, slightly tempered for them, and rounds of applause from those down below for those speedy pit stops that stood them in such good stead, and certainly the work they did for the #1 crew today really gave them a tilt in the race. But for an extra half second, they could have come out ahead of the Attempto Racing 66 Audi. They didn't. That's why the fight went all the way to the finish. Still chats are plenty, but we're waiting after the mechanics have been presented with their trophies. They're now off the podium, waiting to see who is next called out. But the last podium ceremonies of the 2018 Blancpain Sprint Cup. Highs and lows here, plenty of drama, plenty of tension this weekend at the Nurburgring. But just in case you've just arrived to watch the end of the broadcast, Raffaele Marcello and Michael Meadows didn't find out, but Marcello knew in the pit garage with a lap and a half to go when the #1 Audi lost position, went off into the gravel down at the bottom of the hill. They weren't going to gain the places they needed to usurp them, and so they are the champions as well as being the race winners this afternoon here at the Nurburgring. So out onto the podium, Christopher Hasse and Simon Gachet, 3rd place overall. Some more dance moves there from Christopher Hasse, this time with a flag. They worked very hard for that, but the Mercedes seemed to have the pace at the front of the field this weekend. Hubert Hout and Lucas Stoltz showed great pace in Hungary and showed even more pace here and harried the race leader all the way to the finish. But that race leader, why became the race winner, Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marcello. There is the team owner, ACA ASP's Jerome Policon, a man never known to be quiet when he can be noisy. Great character. Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marcello out onto the top step of the podium. That extends Raffaele's lead in the overall Blancpain GT series, but today the important element was becoming the Sprint Cup champions for 2018. So Pirelli winners' caps back on and the trophies coming out to be presented. First to the Sansalot Racing crew of Simon Gachet and Christopher Hasse, presented by Marcus Rutte. Lucas Stoltz on the left, and Hubert Hout with green flashes on the shoulders of his black overalls. They took second place, just to reiterate, just half a second down at the end of the race. Half a second was very, very critical though to Raffaele Marciello, who's shrugging his shoulders on the top step of the podium, and Michael Meadows, because they did enough to take victory, the victory they absolutely needed this afternoon. Golden trophies for the Golden Boys. And out come the checks, presented by Stefan Rattel, the founder and CEO of the SRO Motorsports Group. Big numbers, €7,500 for second place, €10,000 for third place, €10,000 for second place, and €12,500 for the crew that finished first, Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. Plenty of applause from beneath the podium. Sun still shining here at the Nurburgring. It's been an enthralling weekend of racing, and we know this year's champions. They're standing on the top step. They're all given little cans of drink when they went up there. They thought that might be having to replace the champagne, but no, the ceremonial spraying started in 1967 at Le Mans by Dan Gurney. Continues. It's now such a part of racing. The photographers love it unless it gets them in the camera, but real celebrations up there on the podium, and I think plenty more celebrations to follow tonight, led no doubt by the man on the left, the team boss, Jerome Policor. Simon Gachet now feeling what it's like to have a whole bottle of champagne poured down his back, but actually seems to be going rather well. So the top three crews, they'll have to be dragged off the podium, trying to eke out their moment, the moments they all go racing for, the moments they enjoy, for the podiums to follow. But there is the results. After 31 laps of racing, just over half a second between the Black Falcon Mercedes in second place and the ACA ASP Mercedes of Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello, this year's champions. Simon Gachet, Christopher Haas ran to a quiet third place. All the noise was behind Stein Schotthorst trying to keep fourth place all the way to the finish, which he managed ahead of Ezequiel Perez Companc, but it was the attack from Albert Costa that just fell short. That finished in the pit lane with a puncture in seventh, though further down the order fell out of the top 10, but really it was fourth or nothing for that crew. And there you see, in fact, 2 laps down listed at the end for Albert Costa. Pity Biron back to Carlo Van Dam, 13th overall, second on the day in Pro-Am, but unfortunately having led the Pro-Am Championship all year, second overall in the Pro-Am Championship, because Niels Steven-Aert and Marcus Winkelhock, who finished somewhat further behind them, didn't have to push too hard, and the title became theirs this afternoon at the Nürburgring. Third place in class was just enough for them to take that crown. And here, mention him, and out he comes, Niels Steven-Aert out into third place. The veteran, the ever-smiling Marcus Winkelhock. That was what they needed to do for Santalot Racing. So 2 podiums, 2 third places. Third place overall and third in Pro-Am for Santalot Racing. Carlo Van Dam looks dejected, couldn't do anything about it today. Second was all they could manage, but even if they'd won the Pro-Am class today here at the Nürburgring, it wouldn't have been enough after yesterday's set back. And we're waiting for Rinaldi Racing's duo to come onto the podium. Renat Sadikov and South African David Perel onto the top step, shaking hands. I'm not sure they would have felt maybe like shaking hands quite so much yesterday after the clash, but they take the top step, having dropped into the championship this weekend. So the German national anthem ringing out for Rinaldi Racing on the top step of the podium. Team based in Germany, run by Michel Rinaldi. Davide Brivio from Assetto Corsa Competizioni, the fantastic game based on the Blancpain GT series that was launched this weekend. Unbelievable graphics. Take a look at their website, take a look at what is coming through the Steam mechanism, being released in stages, but it really is unbelievably realistic. So for David Perel's AM Cup champion last year. Now another trophy for his cabinet. And the checks the teams like so much, so for Sansalot Racing, that's 2 checks for them today, totaling €15,000. And the big check is going to come out to the drivers on the top step of the podium. But trophies up for the photographers, they're eyeing the champagne bottles at their feet, they know what to do with those. I've never seen drivers leave the podium so quickly, trying to keep their champagne in its bottles. Apart from Marcus Winkelhock, he's such an old-fashioned sort of guy. It's there, we spray it. So the Nurburgring Castle looking fantastic in this autumnal sunshine. It's been a fabulous weekend of racing here at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. It was going to be the deciding event for all of the championships in the Sprint Cup. And there we have Marcus Winkelhock and Neil Stephenhart. Third place today was enough to clinch them the Pro-Am Cup, taking it away from Piti Bierenbakti and Carlo van Dam. It was only 3.5 points between them when they came here, but it was the Thai and the Dutch racer who were ahead. And this afternoon they've ended up behind. So very unlucky for them, but a really good late season charge by Winkelhock and young Stephenhart. And the crews coming out onto the podium. First of all, the 37 3-wide technology crew. Lucas Morais from Brazil and Dennis Dupont on his debut in the series, a young Belgian racer from TCR. 35 crew in second place, the Russians Vladimir Atoev and Alexei Korniev. There they are, and onto the top step. Second overall, almost a victory, an astonishingly good run in the Silver Cup class for the number 6 Black Falcon Mercedes crew of Hubert Hout and Lucas Stolz.
Dankeschön. Wir kommen zu den Trophys und dem Sieger Mark Henrizi, Head of Sport des ADAC Mittelrheine-Bereich, den Pokal für die Drittplatzierten. Herzlichen Glückwunsch, 3-Wide Technology, Lucas Morais und Dennis Dupont. Der Pokal und das Siegerbier für die zweiten Platzierten wird von Mark Henrizi überreicht an Vladimir Atoev und Alexei Korniev von SMP Racing. Herzlichen Glückwunsch. Marvin Wagner, der Chief Technical von Black Falcon, erhält den Pokal von Mark Henrizi ebenfalls. Wir gratulieren Black Falcon als Winning-Team und natürlich geht auch der Siegerpokal an die Startnummer 6 von Black Falcon.
So just waiting for the final trophies to be brought out there. And Luca Stolz and Hubert Hout on the top step, looking very, very pleased with life indeed. They've got the trophy, they've got the checks, they've got the smiles, that's the most important thing, and the points. But second place overall, a really, really strong result for the crew, for the Black Falcon Mercedes team. Luca Stolz was a real star in Hungaroring, and Hubert Hout stepped up to the plate today and delivered big time as they harried the overall race leaders in the number 88 Mercedes. So there are our top 3 crews in the Silver Cup, enjoying life on the podium at the Nurburgring. Far more impressive display than their Pro-Am colleagues managed on their podium ceremony. You can't end a race on the podium without a face full of champagne, and Hubert Hout is suffering, but he won't suffer for long because that was a really strong run from the German veteran. To not just hold on to second place, but to start to harry the race leader, the race winner, the driver who went on to share the championship, Michael Meadows, with his teammate Raffaele Marciello. So after the Nurburgring round is over, they're not on the podium today in the Silver Cup. Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester, they nailed that championship down at the last round in Hungary. Alexei Korniev and Vladimir Atoev, second overall. They were second today, but Lucas Morais rising up. He was third today in class and ends third overall, but certainly plenty of faces down there, of whom you'll see a great deal more. The late season flurry, once Hubert Hout joined Lucas Stolz, moved them up to 7th place overall, but it was the place on the second step of the podium for overall honours here today that really put the smile onto their face. But the Silver Cup, very much an important element of this championship. So it's been a weekend of enthralling racing. Practice on Friday, racing Saturday and racing on Sunday. Racing on Saturday set the scene for the podiums, set the scene for the championship finale, and what a finale we had. So coming out to celebrate victory in the Pro-Am Championship, the champions coming out, Marcus Winkelhock and Niels Stevenart. And then the Silver Cup champions are coming out. We knew them already, Nico Bastian and the tall figure of Jack Manchester. And the overall champions, we know their identity now. We didn't until the final minutes of the final race of the season. Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows for ACA ASP welcome them back out, along with their team owner, ACA ASP's Jerome Policor. Meadows out first, Marciello out second. See the podium already quite red underfoot from all that has been sprayed before, but some more checks coming out from behind from the SRO group. They're not checks, sorry, the warnings, they're the boards that show you who they were, the boards they can put up back at their team base. So the tall figure of Raffaele Marciello on the top step with the shorter figure of Michael Meadows. And there is the trophy they've been aiming for, the Champions Trophy, the overall trophy for the 2018 Blancpain Sprint Cup. Raffaele Marciello has his eye on another trophy as well, the overall Blancpain GT trophy, but they will have to go down in 2 weeks' time to the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona to see if he can land that. But today, this weekend, this whole past week has been spent focusing on this, the Blancpain Sprint Cup, and it's gone the way of the Italian and the British drivers up on the top step of the podium. The sparks from the fireworks adding some drama and theatre to the show up on the podium. And then the fireworks will not be the only thing spraying. Michael Meadows quick to get his bottle uncorked and spray the champagne up on the podium. It's been a really, really strong weekend for the crew on the top step of the podium. But I think we have to take our hats off to a fantastic chase from Alex Riberas, who tried to reward Christopher Mies, his teammate, and the Belgian Audi Club Team WRT crew by taking the title. It was swinging backwards and forwards. Only with a lap and a half to go did we know the outcome of this year's Sprint Cup. It was fast, it was furious, it got a bit side by side at times, but GT racing is always like the very best GT racing in the world. Plenty to celebrate and so many highlights to look back on. We've got the final round of the Endurance Cup, the final round of the Blancpain GT Series in 2 weeks' time down in Spain. But for now, let's celebrate with the ACA ASP, the Mercedes crew of Raffaele Marciello, team boss Jerome Policor, who's now got a very wet shirt, and Michael Meadows. They're doing the main celebrating here at the Nurburgring after a weekend that provided an enormous amount of thrills and fun for the team and for the fans out around the circuit. But for Jerome Policor, he's now got his hand on that Blancpain Sprint Cup trophy, and he's dragging his Silver Cup champions in as well, Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester. But the smiles there, clear for all to see. So let's take a look at the highlights. It seems long ago that Lukas Stoltz led away and held down pole position. Raffaele Marciello tried to go around the outside. The number 2 Audi challenged around the outside at turn 2. There's a bit of a clash, and that led to a puncture. It was further sorting out by the time they got to turn 4, and there was where number 2 went off the circuit yet further. The puncture actually could also come from that incident down there, but incident was cleared with the officials and the race went on. The number 2 came into the pits, but that was a move. The number 17 Team WRT Audi backed up Adam Christodoulou, and around the outside into that vital 7th place at the time went Christopher Mies. He needed every position he could get. The number 3 Audi, Ricardo Feller, got some hoarding on his nose, drove around for a lap, that overheated the engine. Now here's the pit stop, very, very tidy pit stop. Christopher Mies out, Alex Riberas in. He had to do what he could do. He had a few laps on brand new tyres. The Mercedes at the front, Lukas Stoltz leading Raffaele Marciello, stayed out as long as they possibly could. They weren't going to be overtaken by the number 1 Audi, but the number 1 Audi had to make sure it rose to 4th place. That is what it's needed. But Riberas came out, was out, and then just could not get past Stein Schotthorst, and Schotthorst was very brave indeed, defended. It looked as though this move was the move that was going to decide it, but Schotthorst was not backing off. Vincent Voss didn't know where to look on the pit wall. Surely his driver was going through. Yes, he did, but that was without Stein Schotthorst fighting right back at the next corner. Then they came down to turn 5. It looked as though it was the right position for Alex Riberas to take the position. He then got muscled out. Schotthorst refused to give up, and suddenly Ezekiel Porras Compact came back and overtook both of them. That position then changed back to Schotthorst and into the gravel at turn 8, probably with a puncture, went Alex Riberas, and at that moment Raffaele Marciello knew the title was his and Michael Meadows. Dejection down at Team WRT. You had to feel sorry there for Alex Riberas, but coming round to take not just the victory but the overall Sprint Cup title. Raffaele Marciello could watch on for the pit stop because Michael Meadows had done the job. Delight down at ACA ASP. That is it for the 2018 Sprint Cup.